Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey?
I'm here.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Here.
Councilmember Laredo?
Here.
Vice Mayor London?
I have no volume, Mike.
Yes, you do.
Hello?
Just say here. Say here. Thank
I
you.
said it.
Councilmember Moss?
I'm looking for him. There he is. He's here.
Councilmember Segarola?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is an invocation by Pastor Dennis Eastling, Key Biscayne Community Church.
Thank you, Pastor.
Good evening. Let's pray together. Our gracious God, we come to you with thankful hearts. We come to you humble, and we thank you, Father, for the people that you have put in leadership over our country, our state, our village. And Lord, we know that your word says that to whom much is given, much is required. And I appreciate and thank you for the leadership that we have here in Key Biscayne. I would ask that you would give them wisdom, direction, discernment. We pray, Father, that you would give us protection, that you would heal our land, that you would heal our village, that you would help us to promote goodness, kindness, and love, just as you did while you were here. Lord, we love you today. We pray your hand upon this meeting. We pray for each one who's listening and their families and all that they love. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was a cacophony.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is brief comments by council.
Okay, this is our last meeting, hopefully, before the holidays. So I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. And I want to remind everybody, look, while you're out and about, we're going to have a conversation a little later on about the county's mask mandate. But I want to remind everybody, facial covering, social distancing, washing your hands thoroughly and often. And that's going to help us get through this stuff. But other than that, who has comments?
Just a real quick congratulations to everyone who participated in the NBC Today feature. That was really great on the Augusta family. Nice job.
Anybody else? Okay. Public comments.
Yes.
Pete, do we have anybody signed up? Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mayor, there is one person who has raised their hand. It is phone number ending in 554. Caller, if you wish to unmute yourself, please hit *6 on your phone.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes and your address.
Okay, my name is Alejandro Serrano. I live in 784 Ridgewood Road, Key Biscayne. As of today, December 8th, 2020, I, as a representative of the people of the village of Key Biscayne, hereby place Mayor Mike Davey and the council of the village of Key Biscayne on notice. Mayor Mike Davey is to cease and desist any further activities to assume enforcement of a mask mandate. This includes the mayor's plans to begin to issue warnings and subsequent fines to those that are not wearing a face covering or mask. I, along with other residents of the village of Key Biscayne, consider these to be unlawful actions that consequently can set legal precedent and or impact all people of the village of Key Biscayne. If Mayor Mike Davey continues efforts to enforce the unlawful mask mandate rather than offer it as a voluntary recommendation, it will become an involuntary mandate and crime upon the village of the people of Key Biscayne. As such, Mayor Mike Davey and any member of this council that supports these actions will be in violation collectively as well as in their private capacity of the state of Florida Governor's Executive Order number 20-244, as well as in violation of the U.S. Constitution as follows. Number one, violation of the First Amendment, freedom of religion, the act of imposing mandatory medical precautions, preventives, treatments, and or procedures without regard for the religious or conscious freedoms of the people is a direct violation of the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Number two, violation 18 U.S. Code Section 242, which makes it a crime for a person acting under color of any law to willfully deprive a person of a right or privilege protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. Number three, violation 18 U.S. Code Section 241, which makes it unlawful for two or more persons to agree together to injure, threaten, or intimidate a person in any state, territory, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him, her, by the Constitution or the laws of the United States because of his or her having exercised the same. Number four, the Nuremberg Code. In agreement with the Nuremberg Code, according to the Treaty of Versailles, all humans have the right to be fully informed and refuse without consequence to participate in any medical precautions, preventatives, treatments, and or procedures, including but not limited to face coverings. Mayor Mike Davey and the members of this council do not have jurisdiction, authority, or dominion over the will of the people of the village of Key Biscayne. We do not consent to surrender of any of our inborn freedoms in any way, shape, or form to Mayor Mike Davey or the village council. Number five, 18 U.S. Code Section 1091, genocide. Basic offense, whoever, whether in time.
Mr. Mayor, isn't this over this time
and
allotment?
with specific intent.
You have to let him continue. No, he's got 10 more seconds.
Part. A national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such causes seriously bodily injury to members of that group, causes the permanent impairment of the mental
Mr. Serrano, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
I will wrap it up right now.
Thank you.
As a representative member of the people of Key Biscayne, I have read and do hereby agree that we comprehend the above statement. We do not consent to nor recognize any decision made by an entity as superior to or above the power of we the people.
Okay, Mr. Serrano, I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Very well.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Pete, any other callers?
Not at the moment, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do wish to speak and you're currently in the meeting, please dial *9 to raise your hand in the application. If you do wish to call in and you're watching us on channel 77 on Comcast or channel 99 on AT&T Ubers or streaming us online, please dial the number on your screen. That number is 305-365-7569. Mr. Mayor, we have 3 more raised hands.
Okay.
Caller with the number ending in 456. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6.
Hello?
Hello. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Please state your name and address for the record. Yes. Patricia Romano, 361 Beechwood Drive. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for hosting this meeting. I just first want to say that the previous speaker was not representing me. So, because he said he was representing the people of Key Biscayne. So, second, I want the council to really see how we can control COVID-19 in Key Biscayne, enforcing masks and social distance, and not allowing meetings of 10 people or more because there are continuously parties all over Key Biscayne. So we need to really have control of this COVID-19 or the cases keep going up. So please, council, you are in charge. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, our next caller will be phone number ending in 906. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6 now. Again, phone number ending in 906. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6 on your telephone now.
Hello,
Thank you.
please.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Esteves, 798 Crandon Boulevard. Mr. Mayor, council members, I will urge you to please do not only enforce the mask mandate. The previous speaker did not represent me either. And also to enforce curfew. Why we are having curfews is not enforced. As a condominium manager, I have to just fight with teenagers in all my properties, gatherings in the swimming pool, gatherings in common areas, all of them with that mask and everything. So, and past curfew time, 11 o'clock at night, 7-Eleven. Why we don't enforce it? Why we don't do our job? I urge you, please, to look into it. You're in charge to save our lives. I'm very fortunate that I have not had infected, and I do almost, my daily routine that I did before because of my work. But we have to help each other. So look into it. How you can. The numbers in Key Biscayne, they are rising by numbers that in 2 weeks, I don't know what you're going to do, Mr. Mayor, council members. Were you going to shut down again? I mean, maybe they county will like other states. But at least in Key Biscayne, we have to help each other. And we relied on you to impose and give authorization and ask the police chief to enforce curfew in a different way. I mean, everybody's in the streets freely. There are many countries that they have curfew and they give you big fines, a warning, because if you don't wear a mask, a warning if you are on the street without a curfew. No, that is not. That is not to helping us not to get infected and save lives. So please have in mind that you are the ones that have the authority to take care of us and is trying to stop the COVID number to continue to rise on the island. And thank you very much for what you do. Welcome to our re-elected council members, and welcome back, Frank Kaplan. And I wish you everybody a Merry Christmas, and let's pray that we have a better 2020. Thank you. To 21. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
All right, Mr. Mayor, our next caller is telephone number ending in 382. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6 now.
Hi, Steve Simon, 335 Harbor Lane. As you well know, your most important hire as a council is the village manager. Your advertisement for the next village manager is up and running, stating that applications will be accepted through the end of this month. So that part of the process is underway. Tonight's agenda includes an item pertaining to the next steps in that process. As you also know, in 1991, I served as chairman of the first village manager search, and our committee designed and implemented a process that was right for that moment, drew 131 applicants, and then ended up receiving national recognition from the head of the ICMA for our search process. Here we are nearly 30 years later. I am advocating that the current village manager search process be tailored to present day circumstances by building upon all that the lessons of history can teach us from this village's multiple searches and multiple managers. With that in mind, I've sent to each of you a proposal for a thorough, methodical process that combines council involvement, the village human resources person, and 2 of the 8 search firms from your October 13th list who have agreed to work together. Their steps, including with HR, complement each other rather than being redundant. The result will be a uniform process. The working relationship among all parties and responsibilities for background and reference checks are clearly spelled out in the proposal. to touch on some of the highlights of the selected components of the two search firms. One recruiter, Connie Hoffman, who is a former city manager, conducts lengthy interviews and even provides counsel with those transcripts. She includes multiple role-playing and simulation episodes with each candidate to assess various aspects of their managerial skills. Once that group is narrowed to 3 to 5, then Berkeley Group, which was another of the firms, has 2 different tests, each conducted by a PhD. That's 2 different doctors, one administering an emotional intelligence test and one a psychological assessment test. I am confident that if you adopt the process as detailed in what I sent to each of you, you and all of us as residents will be more than pleased with the thoroughness and clearly delineated steps of the search. If you agree that good process is the most likely predictor of a good outcome, then all of us should end up being satisfied with the result. My specific request, adopt the proposal, assign a member of the council along with Andrea and the village attorney to execute agreements with both firms so they can commence their work while the applications are coming in this month. That way you will be able to move forward with a plan not just in place, but operational over the holiday period. So by the time you next convene on January 12, you can narrow the list of candidates and keep moving forward with a specific plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, our next caller is telephone number ending in 057. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6 on your telephone now.
Hello, caller.
Hello, this is Julie. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Julie Dick, 151 Crandon Boulevard in Key Biscayne. Hello to all of you. I am speaking tonight to encourage you to please take whatever steps you can to protect our island from COVID-19. I personally have spent most of my time since June away from my home because I have not felt safe there, because I walk into the lobby of my building, people aren't wearing masks. Staff isn't wearing masks. If I go to get carry out, people, a lot of times in restaurants aren't wearing masks. You go to the farmer's market, there's limited mask compliance. There are groups of people socializing around the island, very little compliance. This community is not taking it seriously. It's scary. It's scary for people with underlying conditions who have other vulnerabilities, or the elderly. It's and generally, I mean, it's a risk for even other people who don't have underlying conditions and don't know. But it's ridiculous that it's gotten so far. And, you know, unfortunately, communities in Florida have been pushed around by the governor to not put stronger enforcement in place. But I think it's time to just step up and do what's necessary to protect people and to protect this community so that we can all recover from this and go on to being able to go back to our normal lives. But the way it's standing is not acceptable. And even when we did have sort of rules in place that were being supposedly enforced, I would see groups all the time and the police really ignoring large gatherings, maskless gatherings. And that's not okay. I mean, people need to understand that this is really causing great harm. I mean, Mass Academy has very high rates of COVID right now. And in comparison to other schools in the district, in size, it seems like we may have one of the higher percentage rates. And it goes to show what kind of activity is going on in Key Biscayne right now and the lack of seriousness the community is taking this virus and the threat it poses. So I hope that you will do all in your power to really encourage the police to enforce a mask mandate, but also think about other solutions that can really reduce the risk. I mean, educational campaigns I think are very important, but also in commercial establishments, making sure that people are wearing masks in any indoor setting, but also in the beaches, that we are keeping large groups from gathering in any outdoor setting, and thinking about limiting capacity at some of the restaurants or whatever else, because it's really a very significant spike right now. And I know the fatigue's been there, but it's really time to take this seriously. So thank you all for all you do. And
thank you, Julie.
look forward to when we can all have a meeting in person.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Any other
No one
callers?
else,
Okay.
no one else has signed up, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Let's close public comments and move on to the next item.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the agenda: approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
Okay, and I have two items that have come up. One of them is an update on enforcement of the county's mask mandate. I've got some information. I've had some calls with the Mayor Cava has had a couple calls, and just had one with the League of Cities today. So I want to talk to you all about that. I also want to talk about CARES Act funding. Our commissioner, County Commissioner Regalado, and Commissioner Hardiman were working together yesterday on that. So I'd just like to have a brief discussion with you all and bring everybody up to date with what I know. So that would be 2 and 3 discussion items.
Moved with those additions.
Anybody else have any additions?
Yes, Mayor, I wanted to.
Hold on, Councilmember Laredo, then Councilmember Moss.
I'm sorry, I jumped in.
Oh, that's okay.
I wonder if you can also have interest and defer to the next meeting, item 10B on the meeting manager, because I have not been able to particularly be more versed on the Robert's Rules of Order. I just want to take a quick look and it's included.
Fine.
If it doesn't.
No, I just, that's absolutely fine. That's a housekeeping. So we certainly don't have
And
to.
I would just like to see if we can talk very briefly about the advisory boards at under 11.
Okay, so 11.4 would be advisory boards?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, 10B is deferred to the next council meeting?
10B is deferred to the next council meeting, correct?
Thank you all.
Well, assuming we all vote, I think. But Councilmember Moss?
Yeah, I'd like to add a item to mayor and council members' discussions on moving the farmers market temporarily to 5:30.
What?
Oh, because of the Christmas
because
trees?
of the sales of the trees, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then just real quick, interim manager, is that something we're going to be able to discuss during?
Yeah, that's going to be next steps.
All right. That's what that's for.
Yeah.
Moved as amended.
Anybody else? Sorry, I just, anybody else want to add anything? I didn't see, I can't see. Councilmember Cigarola, did you raise your hand? No. Was that a finger wag or was that a raised hand? Just a finger wag. Got it. Okay, then no. Councilmember Kaplan has moved it.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Okay.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a special presentation of legislative appropriation of $200,000 by State Representative Nick Duran and State Senator Ileana Garcia for 530 Crandon Park.
Yes, and thank you both for being here virtually. Senator Garcia, it's nice to meet you via the internet. Representative Duran, good to see you again. And I have your check. We certainly appreciate it. I'm doing my best Vanna White here, so you'll have to bear with me.
Nice.
Well done. Well done, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. People say I have no skills.
Well, let's get used to practicing that one more frequently.
Yeah, exactly.
Congressman, congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Councilman, thank you very much. It's good to be with you all. And I'm not as cool as that yet. I can't be called a congressman just yet. I like it, but a state rep, and I appreciate. I know where you're going though, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, you've been with us all along, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Is the senator here? I know she was here previously. She may have had to drop off. We took too long.
I understand she was having some connectivity issues, so she was going to hop off and hop back on.
All right. Well, if anybody sees her, let's try and get her on.
Mayor, I was going to ask you, you don't have to do it today, but since on that item that I deferred, nevertheless, one of them was something we decided last week about you, at your discretion, moving up our reports towards the front. So,
yeah, we could do that, but I'd like that, obviously I want to
do
get
that next year if you want, but if she comes up, you should put it back on because.
Well, yeah, I think we'll let her speak if she's able to get back on. But Nick, thank you. If you can just explain what this is and why we have 200,000, and go from there. Representative.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to the council and to the city manager and to all our constituents. It's good to be with you all this evening. We come with a check for a couple of $100,000 for green space and to help promote green space. And this is a combination of some of the work done by you all in helping promote it. Your great legislative group with Mr. Killman and Mr. Bailey.
I forgot to recognize them as well. Mario and Jonathan are on the call as well.
Yes, and we have a check for you all to support this park. I think this is the second year in a row we get to do a celebration like this, and I hope we continue to keep doing these. I can say this to you. I'm looking forward to working with Senator Garcia. Her and I have been going back and forth, and we're going to get together to really kind of work on a couple of issues related to the Bay and integrity issues there, infrastructure issues. I think we all know those are issues that are critical to our future and to this community. And so I look forward to continuing the dialogue with all of you, Mr. Mayor, and the council on those issues and many more. As you all know, I don't live we don't operate from towers in the sky. We are in the community. We are close by. Please lean in and contact us whenever, and if I can be of any help to you all. But just looking forward to the next 2 years. We got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We sure do.
Mario, I see you there, and Jonathan's on the call. Thank you all for your efforts. I guess, we'll be talking later about our legislative priorities as well. And if the senator comes back, obviously we'll invite her to come up again. So thank you again, Representative. We look forward to the next 2 years. Let's get stuff done.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Sorry, you get to do that.
All those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You can throw out about 2/3 of this book.
Tab 9.
All right. Don't check this meeting. All right, let's move on.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending and renaming Section 2-62, Collection Late Payment Charge, Special Assessment Lien for Delinquent Solid Waste and Recycling Service Fees of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to the village's solid waste and recycling fees and collection methods, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Can we open this for public discussion? Has anybody signed up to speak to this? Well, actually, Madam Manager, do you want to speak to this first, and then we'll go to public comments if there are any?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I had asked Benjamin Nussbaum, our CFO, to reach out to council members to brief you. There are quite a few items on this agenda related to this topic. So what the village is doing for both what we're trying to do, both our solid waste collection of fees as well as the stormwater fees. This agenda item is second reading an ordinance that basically amends our ordinance to allow for the village to collect the solid waste fee through our tax bill. One point of clarification on first reading, I misspoke. I said that I was not sure if we got a discount, if the residents get a discount if they pay early. You do get a discount if you pay early. So if you make that early payment, you would get that 4% savings, if you will. You get a discount on the bill. So this does not change the fee in any way. It doesn't change the level of service. It is an administratively initiated process that basically will improve our collection rate. It will streamline the process. It'll free up some staff resources, and we are happy to take any questions.
Let's open it for public comments first, and then we'll go to the questions and discussion. Did I do that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody signed up, Pete?
No, Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up for comment.
Who wants to talk about solid waste? Okay, I'm going to close the public comments. Discussion. Any discussion here tonight? I want to thank you guys. I mean, I think this is going to be good. Our collection rate's going to improve, and that's always a good thing. And if, look, people can get benefits, can get a reduction by paying early, I think that's great too. So thank you for doing that. Thank you to the manager, Benjamin. Thank you to everybody involved with this one, because this is a good one.
Thank you.
All right, let's call the vote.
Just a sort of a timing of how it works. More insight than question. We won't know for budgeting. We won't know for budgeting in a given year what the rate of the 4% or 3% or 2% discount will be on collections. But that will be determined after we budget for the following year, I gather. And we will simply budget and appropriate based on what the charges are, the solid waste charges are. And if there's a surplus resulting because the actual discounts are less than projected, perhaps, or estimated, then there'll simply be a surplus.
Correct.
But that's the way it'll happen. It'll happen prospectively. In other words, we won't be in a budget bind because we'll have appropriated a sum of money and then later find out that the actual collections are less because of the discount.
No, I think this is actually going to enhance our collection rate, and it will also, I mean, you're right, we'll budget as to the November 1st payment rate, right?
And we also, in our budget projections, Councilmember Kaplan, what we did was we have a historic trend on how many people take advantage typically of the tax, of the prepayment. So we've applied that percentage for purposes of our projections and our cost.
So you model that in.
Yes, sir.
And that could be a variable, but it's probably going to be pretty close here.
It seems to be pretty consistent. Yeah.
Okay. The last point, this is subsection F. I mentioned this at the first reading. Should the manager have discretion in cases of hardship to enter into payment plans?
Yeah, so Councilmember Kaplan, we looked into that. We believe if the will of the council, they want to have that type of program, that the village can implement it. What we'll probably do is actually bring forward a separate ordinance laying out a procedure that would apply to not just this solid waste fee, but also other fees that the village would charge. That is something, though, that the village can establish if the village would like to.
Okay.
I have a problem with that because it's my experience. I think particularly since we're such a small community and we are 7 elected officials, we would learn informally probably from those citizens. If we make it a policy and all of this stuff, it has the unintended consequence, again, speaking from experience, that a lot of people run to this clause before everything else. It is part of human nature, and so it's. I don't believe it's solved. We have collectively, the 7 of us in the administration, the ability to deal on a case-by-case basis. This opens up a whole window that could be burdensome, administrative.
We can have that discussion as a matter of policy and come to a decision when the time comes. I have found that this is. That this does arise in real life and that there are occasions when hardships are answerable without precedent, adverse precedent. But that's for another time.
I think it's a valid point. I think we want to figure that out going forward when we do if we're doing a policy or a procedure.
All right, so we're voting on the ordinance as presented.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All those in roll call.
Roll call. Vice Mayor London.
Ed, you for or against this?
Oh boy.
You know what? Keep going.
Keep going. It's ridiculous.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Councilmember Moss.
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola.
Yes.
Mayor Davey.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
The ordinance is approved on second reading. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Section 29-5, collection of stormwater utility fee liens of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to the village's stormwater utility and collection methods, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, again, Madam Manager?
Yes, thank you, sir. So as we had in the ordinance on second reading prior to this item, what we are doing here, we administratively are initiating a process whereby we can collect your storm water utility fees on your tax bill as opposed to receiving the bill through the water and sewer department. So this is a cost saving measure. It is an efficiency measure. Like I previously said, would be a discount if you pay your taxes early. You would be the beneficiary of that 4% and then tiered discount moving forward. We've briefed council members. This is an ordinance on second reading. Staff is available to answer any questions.
It's open for public comment first. Anybody signed up, Pete?
Mr. Mayor, nobody's signed up to speak.
Okay. Let's close public comment. Discussion. Any comments by council?
I have a quick comment.
Councilmember Moss, you're recognized.
So if we, Andrea, let's just say that an apartment's paying, what, $16 a month. With the 4%, they're still going to be paying the $16 a month. And then if they pay early, it would be 4% less than $16? Or will we be adjusting the rates in order to cover what we want to if it's not paid with the 4% discount?
Right, so that was comparable to what Councilmember Kaplan had mentioned on the previous item. So for purposes of budgeting and in our forecasting, we'll assume the same rate of prepayments that we have had historically. So if we notice a change in behavior, we can accommodate that. But typically, we would expect the same prepayment ratios. So we shouldn't see too much of a change because of that. I will point out, for condos, this is going to be a little bit different, more so for the condominium, because currently the association is billed for their stormwater utility fee. This is going to be a more intimate one-on-one exchange, because now the individual unit owners are going to see this bill on their actual on their taxes. So it's less, it'll be less of an interaction on the association level. So hopefully you'll see a reduction in your condo dues, but it'll flip over now to this tax that comes directly to the village from the unit owner. Thank you. And again, to point out, this does not change the rate, this does not change the service level, simply a method of collecting. Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any comments? All right.
I just wanted to say, Mayor, that to congratulate our CFO, Ben.
Yeah.
Proactive reaching out to us to clear this thing. That's why these things can move faster once,
Agreed.
It's a nice practice. Thank you.
Spot on. Well done. All right. Call the vote.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola?
Yes.
Mayor Davey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor London? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Yes? The ordinance is approved on second reading.
Excellent. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, revising the service fee for solid waste and recycling collection services, repealing resolution number 2017-54, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Okay, I'm sorry, Madam Manager, you want to explain?
Sure, I can introduce the item. So basically what this is a change to your solid waste fee. So based on the newly awarded solid waste contract at the November 17th meeting, we went through a competitive process. There was some discussion about the level of service. Ultimately, we awarded a contract that would result in it's a pass-through. It would result in an increase in the cost to the village. And as a result, based on the way that our solid waste fee works, it's a direct pass-through of cost to our customers, to the residents. And so currently for single family homes, your annual cost is $645 for your solid waste service, which includes both your regular garbage, your bulky waste, as well as your recycling service. Based on the newly awarded contract, the fee would increase to $805 per year in year one. Based on the way that we did an analysis and we sort of tried to normalize the rate, there's a couple variables, but ultimately in year one, it'll be $805. And then the good news is in years 2 and 3 in fiscal 22 and fiscal 23, the rate will drop down to $755. So that's where we are. This is a resolution that would amend that fee. It is billed annually. The item that just passed previously regarding collection method doesn't take effect until next year. So this year, this would be the bill that our residents that are about 1,250 homes are currently receiving the service provided directly from the village. So we can answer any questions the council may have.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, we need to open a public hearing for this resolution.
Oh, we do? I'm sorry. Open
Correct.
public.
Per our code, Mayor, per our code, because it's a
fees.
fee,
Right.
it's
That's right.
required to have a public hearing.
Okay. I'm opening the public comments. Do we have anybody signed up to talk about the solid waste fees?
Does Peter want to repeat the instructions?
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching our meeting on channel 77, channel 99, or streaming us live, please dial the number on your TV screens. The number is 305-365-7569. And the meeting ID is 231-627-8415. Once you've called in, please dial *9 on your telephones to raise your hand. For those of you that are currently in the meeting and wish to speak, please dial *9. Mr. Mayor, we do have one caller.
Okay.
The phone number is ending in 864. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6 to unmute yourself. Caller, you are live.
Hello, this is Rose. Hello, this is Rose Haney, 472 Glenridge Road. I see that the solid waste fee being proposed is about 25% more than the previous fee, and I think that's a considerable increase, and just don't understand why it has to go up so much. Normally, fees don't go up like $150 from one year to the next. It's like a large increase. So I think you should consider a more efficient way of negotiating a contract so that solid waste can pick up our garbage without us having to pay so much more. And I don't think a lot of people realize this was even on the agenda because it wasn't, explained on the agenda that this was an increased fee. You had to go through all the hundreds of pages of paperwork to find it. So that's my feedback. Try to negotiate a better contract so that they can pick up our garbage without, a 25% increase in fee. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Have a nice
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Mr. Mayor, no one else has signed up to speak.
Okay.
Mayor, her comments are so, forgive me.
Hold on one second. Just let's see if there's anybody else. If there's nobody else, I'm going to close public comments, and then Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
Just that this we discussed before, and I particularly when it's village managers' presentations, as you recall, we talked about putting it in plain English, particularly when it has to do with money. And that is one of the items on that page that doesn't have a money value. She has a very good, notwithstanding the merits of whether this is fair or not, that we have to do a better job of communicating because it is a significant justifiably so, but significant raise, and I can see where a lot of people miss it. I'm just saying, moving forward, as we told the manager many months ago, to make sure these money impacts things are clearly visible instead of the legalistic language when people get into the web page. I sympathize with that point of view.
Okay.
Anyway, we can't do anything about it now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I'll move to the we vote on it. Yeah.
Well, one question. I mean, I guess this is more of an observation. From the cover memo, it seems to me there's two predicates for this increase. The first is an extended period of time working with waste management prior to the time that, our great waste kicks in. That's one. The other, I didn't really understand, because I thought when Great Waste bid, they bid alternatively. And one alternative was including side yard pickup, which we desired, and the other alternative didn't. Both 2 times a week, one time a week for recycling. Right. So I thought that price was baked in, and that might have been the first meeting that I attended a couple weeks ago. But is that not correct? Am I wrong about that?
So as I understood the question, you're saying was the $645 that we had paid previously, did that already account for the increased contractual cost?
Two things. One is I understand that there would be a spread over the contractual costs because of waste management.
The proration, correct.
Right.
That I understand.
Yes. Right.
That's not a contract adjustment. That's just, a carryover.
Right.
The other part, though, and the thrust of my question on the other part is, I thought that the alternative that included side yard pickup and twice a week had a price baked in that was less than this price.
No. So what you might be thinking of the budget numbers. So and I know it's a big book, but on page 180 of our budget, in the solid waste fund, when we were going through the workshops for the budget process, we had already anticipated there being an increase in the cost of these services. So we had identified what we had projected the increase to be based on benchmarking against other cities, for example, Coral Gables. So this amount is within budgeted funds, but it's actually, we did negotiate, even with the higher service level than was recommended, we're within budgeted funds, but it's still an increase in cost for the village as well as for the customer.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Mayor, can I?
Yeah, Councilmember Moss.
So, I mean, what the last speaker spoke about asking, why we have a 20% increase, and I think we all know the answer, but can you clarify a little bit about the difference? Because I believe that we were on an old contract that was much lower for the level of service that we were asking for.
Correct.
I think, and then I think that to assure people that, once this contract is up, we're not going to be seeing another 20% increase, or at least we shouldn't be expecting that. We should be in par of where we need to be.
Correct. So basically the prior vendor had inherited or took over a contract that was low bid. And so we were paying low rates, but I think the service also reflected that. I think, we, as a community, we were really happy with the level of service that we were receiving from our vendor. And so we went through a competitive process. The current provider did let us know what their pricing would be. In fact, at the meeting, they actually spoke, and there were some arguments that were made as to why perhaps the council might want to go a different route. But the council ultimately did decide to go ahead and preserve the side yard service, which, there is a cost to that. And like I said, this is a fee for service. It's a direct pass through. So yes, it is a 25% increase, and we recognize that is, that's real money to the residents. And we're hopeful that you will find the service to be excellent, and that you will find the transition. It'll be a transition. I think there are going to be some operational issues that we've identified that we're going to have to work through, and we will do so with white glove service and with excellence. And it is an increase, and we recognize that, and hopefully, you'll feel that the service is there. And in the event that the council feels or the community feels that the service isn't there and they want to change the level of service, the fee would be reduced or increased accordingly.
And we should have.
Sorry, Councilmember London, then Councilmember Laredo.
You're muted, sir.
There you go. Excuse me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
What is the difference between curbside pickup and side yard pickup?
So I learned there's curbside, side yard, and then backyard, which is a term that hadn't been introduced before, but is actually in our ordinance. So
are we having curbside and side yard, or curbside and backyard?
So right now the contract reads side yard.
And what is the difference between that cost and curbside? Is it significant?
I want to say it was like 270,000. Jake or Benjamin, if you recall, or Heidi, even from the last meeting, I can pull up my agenda, but I think it was about 270,000.
Okay. So that, and we have about 1,250 people?
There's about 1,250 single families that are receiving the service, yes.
Okay. So it's about another $13 a month. Does that sound about right?
13 a month, and then if you annualize, it goes from 645 to 805, so a 25% increase.
Thank you.
And there was some proration, and the analysis is included in the agenda item, but I'll keep it simple.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes, but it goes back down $50 on the second and third year. That's important for her to understand, and those who are listening.
Yes.
It's sort of an adjustment bridge, a bridge cost to get better service. We failed to communicate this well. I apologize for that, but I think it's a necessary thing, and it's worth the support. And you need to monitor closely. But the second and third year is actually a reduction.
Down to $755, I think.
Yeah, $755, which is about $50.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Well, there was one suggestion that got no currency at all, which was to pick up once a week. That didn't get any support.
Yeah, that didn't work. All right. Anybody else? Or we call the question?
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola?
Yes.
Mayor Davey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor London?
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, establishing the village's 2021 legislative priorities and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
You're muted, sir.
Mario Bailey and Jonathan Kilman are here. Madam Manager, want to set us off?
Yes, I will kick us off. So basically,
Madam Manager, is there a way that your staff can make a courtesy call to the senator?
Yeah, actually, Jonathan had been in touch with her.
At least that she knows that we could wait for her if she's going to come back.
Yeah, Todd, would you follow up kindly with the senator and just let her know at her convenience? We'd love to hear from her.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so legislative priorities. So what we did, we took last year's priorities and we worked with our lobbyists. I think two things really that were noteworthy that I can point out, and then I can turn it over to our firm to speak about the current situation and have, help with the discussion. But basically we added language that generically supports the grant program that the village has established. We have upwards of $30 million worth of grant funding that we're actively pursuing. So we added that language. And then with regard to the appropriations, we're making two appropriations requests. One is for the stormwater utility program. As you know, we have an $18 million pledge towards stormwater improvements from the stormwater fund. And so we've asked the state for 500,000 to contribute to our stormwater improvements. And the second appropriations request is also for $500,000 for beach management, beach preservation activities, including handling the sargassum seaweed issue as best as we possibly can. So those are the two appropriations requests. With that, I can answer any questions, or Mayor, if you'd like to turn it over to our lobbyists, they can speak to any specific situations that they think we should be aware of, and then can field any questions for the council.
To the lobbyists. So I'm getting a reverb.
Yeah, I think Ed needed to mute himself. Okay, so we've got Mr. Kilman and Mr. Bailey. Gentlemen, if you'd like to go for it.
Yes, and I think Jonathan is having some internet issues. I think he just got kicked out. So
he was trying to get back on. So anytime he tries, I'll try and let him back in.
And when he comes in, I'll let him just take over for the start. So really quick, we've been working closely with your staff who's been doing an amazing job. I want to say earlier they did the FERDAP presentation. That work could not have been done without them putting together a good application. And so hats off first to your staff for making that happen. And the reason why I wanted to start off with the appropriations, the reason why we selected these two direct line items, because we felt it was appropriate for this current session, particularly appropriation of item number 10 regarding flood mitigation. The House this year created a special subcommittee that's going to deal with flooding. And the Speaker and Senate President, during their address, they particularly mentioned sea level rising and also beach renourishment. And so that's why we selected number 13. If you look at numbers 11 and 12, those are grant. But in the past, we have worked specifically with chairmen to make sure those items are funded because they come directly from the legislature. So like, for instance, the FERDAP, some years it has not been funded. And also some years we need to increase the pool of money to get up to the number that we're ranked. Also before you have your policies. We again work with staff and looked at last year's and what we feel the appetite of the council. And so hopefully you like what we're suggesting. We're also open to any addition if you feel they're needed, and we'll be available around the clock. And hopefully Jonathan has been able to join back in.
I have just a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, you're recognized.
I think that thank you for this work, and I know it's in conjunction with our staff and all of that, but what I think as we speak, between transition in Washington and probably this week we'll have a new bill. Hopefully the Republicans and Democrats are starting to work together. It's very important this year, more than any, that you irrespective of this, because money's going to be flying out of Washington either before the 20th of January or thereafter. And we need to just be proactively looking at what we can grab. I'm using grotesque terms, but this is wonderful under a normal year. But this is a very unusual year. And in the next few weeks, literally in the next few weeks, you will have a new funding for the CARE Act that you're going to talk about later, Mayor.
Right.
Two, I guess. So I just hope that they get aggressive in terms of proactive and looking to Washington and bring us as much money as we need.
I agree. Mr. Kilman is available.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
But it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And obviously we've worked closely with your city manager and Tom and Benjamin and Dr. Samimi, along with Mario, and they pivoted very quickly, given the circumstances this year, to look for other sources. And to your point, Councilmember Laredo, the sources of funds this year will be different than traditionally. We expect and anticipate a different outlook in the way that the budget will be operated. We know the House has adopted new rules, including one that says that if you don't get funding that's at least 50% of your request on any appropriation, then the line item will not be funded at all. And so we've worked with staff to make recommendations that have been incorporated into the proposed resolution in that regard. But importantly, we've worked closely with them also on discussions around things like grants, which is something they worked very quickly to begin to identify, I know, this year. And we will continue to do that on an ongoing basis. Your point about what's happening at the federal level certainly is a priority for us to track and see how those funds come down. We know the last round funding went through county level. We may see additional funds coming through the state level in the forms of grants and agencies. We will keep you all apprised of that as that information becomes available. And of course, we'll be working with Representative Duran and Senator Garcia to support the council and the village any way we can. And so with that, if I
think he got frozen.
Unless he's already covered them.
There he goes.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly. Councilmember Moss.
Mario, you mentioned 13. I don't have 13 on mine.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so Mario, point of clarification. I think Mario may have been looking at the draft that we had initiated with, which was last year. So if you look at in our agenda packet, items 11 and 12 are the appropriations.
Okay, so there's no 13 then?
No.
All right.
Councilmember Vice Mayor London.
Through the good offices of Chad, a few weeks ago I had a
Vice Mayor London, you're muted, sir.
Mutes me all the time. Anyway, I was saying through the good offices of Chad, he arranged for me to have a telephone meeting with an attorney. He used to be a public service commission attorney and very knowledgeable of how the PSC works and what we could do. The topic of our conversation had to do with the methodology that FPNL is utilizing to determine the priorities for installing underground utilities or hardening. Obviously, I disagree with their methodology. I think we should have been on the first group of cities to get the undergrounding. Anyway, the idea also was potentially hiring a lawyer to represent us at the PSC to see if they could change the methodology of FPNL. What he recommended at that meeting was that we do it legislatively, not at PSC, but rather through the legislature. In other words, this is something that doesn't cost any money. This is something that comes through appropriations. And so today, I think it was today, yes, I talked to Mario at length about this, about how we could possibly legislatively pass the methodology or change in methodology to make it more meaningful and realistic, which just so happens would benefit the village of Key Biscayne. And I think this one item could save us $36 million, and it doesn't cost the state anything. So to me, this is one of the major priorities I believe legislatively we should be looking at this time. And I told Mario I'd be happy to work with him, help him any way I can with the methodology based on my experience with what they've done in the insurance industry, changing the methodology that they used to have to the methodology that they have now after Andrew in 92. So I think everybody should know about that and know that that should be one of our major things that we're going to work on.
Yeah, hold on one second. Mario, did you want to speak to that? Or
Sure. Under your policies, I think it should be item number 3. We should be able to accomplish, if that's the will of the council, we will be able to accomplish that with item number 3.
Okay. All right. And then Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. And that's where I was going to, but also I wonder if our consultants can send us the names and the terms and who appointed the public service commissioners now, the expiration of their, and I want to ask the attorney, I'm trying to recall from my service as a commissioner, the ex parte rules do not apply to elected officials if it's not a docketed case.
Ex parte, it's whether or not the item may be pending or potentially coming before them. So if it's not pending, then it wouldn't apply, or impending, really.
Yeah, my point to my fellow councilmen, being there, there's a special weight to elected officials if you're within the ex parte rules. for these individuals to hear from us. I don't believe we need another attorney, and I don't believe we need anything at this stage. We have the firm in Tallahassee, and in all 7 of us could probably figure out. Once I get that list, I can tell you how to do that, and that's very good time that we can spend in Tallahassee. They like hearing from elected officials,
right?
As versus everybody else. So it's just a thought. Well, we can get that list.
Okay,
it's a good thought.
Chairman and all of that in their terms. Yeah.
No, I agree. Let's get moving on that.
We'll make it happen, sir.
Thank you.
Like
move it. Yeah.
One Mario, and I don't know. First of all, Mario, you look great. You haven't aged a bit. It's good to see you. We had been carrying sort of anti-preemption on our priorities for years. Is that just wasteful in your opinion, or is that something that we should continue to remind the legislature that we think is important?
I can try and take a stab at that if you like. It's a good question, and I think it's not wasteful. I think it is a supplement to the work that the League of Cities will be doing on a consistent basis. I think it is important to kind of pick and choose our fights, so to speak. There are places where I think we can make a bigger impact, and other places where we'll make a lesser impact. In those places where we're opining on preemption issues, and the other side of the conversation is a technology which is arguing that it doesn't function without the ability to cross jurisdictions and therefore needs state interaction. That would be, for example, ride sharing. I think it's more difficult to make the case when it is ideological issues such as paper straw bans and things like that. I think we can have a bigger voice in arguing for the importance of the independent role of local governance. And so that doesn't undermine our efforts. I just wanted to point out where I think we would be more effective when we make that argument, but I don't think it's wasteful.
You think the League of Cities will continue to promote the point?
I don't have any reason to believe they would not continue to push that. It's certainly consistent with the way that they have been in recent years. And on behalf of the village, we've been supplementing that point. But I think that the strength of that argument has in recent years varied depending upon the issue is on the other side and how much the issue ties into, like I said, a technology or something that seems dependent on multi-jurisdictional functionality.
If we had a particular issue that was caught up in the ambit of preemption, I think I'd feel more strongly about including the principle. At this point, I don't think we do. So I take your point. And I guess my last question concerns the causeway. We don't have necessarily a particular ask, but we have a big existential concern with having more of a footprint and an influence on matters pertaining to the causeway. Is it advisable to include some placeholder for, I'll call it extra jurisdictional influence affecting Rickenbacker in our legislative priorities? Because we're going to want to go there.
I think the champions for that most likely will be the local delegation members, or in particular those who represent the village in Tallahassee. And so I think we can certainly coordinate with them on those issues. Obviously, there's a tension between the city's interest, the city of Miami, and the village's interests at times with respect to the causeway. We certainly understand that and do everything we can to champion the village's perspective. I think if it's the role of the council and you want to put that into the proposal, certainly we are happy to advocate forcefully. I can just tell you the voices that will be the strongest on that will be the elected representatives at the state level whose district includes the village, and that's somewhere we would coordinate very closely with Representative Duran and the new Senator Garcia.
Maybe it's just an instinct, but maybe our better battle or effort is local with the county to begin.
No, that's right. Yeah, right now we're moving along well with them. We're playing well with others.
And an afterthought, I apologize. I thought that was my last comment. Would the restrictions on COVID response potentially rise to the level of something that touches more directly on preemption that we would want to speak to?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because I don't know yet what policies the legislature might attempt to enact that would attempt to specifically preempt the ability of local government to enforce rules in its own jurisdictions with respect to COVID. I think the governor, at least initially, took a fairly hands-off approach and said, let the locals deal with this. I think it would be fairly inconsistent for the legislature to take a different perspective on that. To be frank with you, I haven't heard specific policy proposals on that. I don't know if the representative has. I haven't heard rumors about specific policy proposals to preempt that. But again, that will be an area where I could see us taking a position, because that is not one that is like a technological innovation that's dependent on multi-jurisdictionalism. So, if the representative, I don't know if Representative.
Yeah, please.
Yes. So to your point with respect to COVID, and I would say, earlier on, we heard somebody call in about mask mandates, and there is actually a representative who has filed a piece of legislation that would remove local jurisdiction from imposing mask mandates. And I'll say this: the person who has filed it is a lawyer, and he has gone across the state filing lawsuits against counties and municipalities, and he has lost every single time. And I would say to you that he is not necessarily one of the most well-liked members by the leadership in the House. So where that piece of legislation goes is a part of will be interesting to see. But to your point of has somebody taken action? Yes, somebody has moved forward with some proposal like that. But again, there's about 2,000 plus pieces of legislation that are filed over the course of session, and maybe 200 ever passed. So it has a mountain to climb on its own, particularly in a COVID pandemic session. That should be interesting to see how any legislation is going to have a very difficult time getting past this go round.
If I could just add one.
No, go ahead, Mario, and then Councilmember Laredo, were you saying something?
Sure. In our policy item number 1, I think that gives us the power to do it in the current legislative priorities. If it's the will of the council, I think it can be accomplished with your policy number 1 regarding home rule powers.
I certainly think we need to be kept apprised. I'll stay in touch with Representative Duran, of course, and if we hear anything coming down, then maybe we need to galvanize and get a little more proactive. Councilmember Laredo?
No, I was just moving the item.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mario, last point, and then we'll get to the approval. I remember a couple years ago, the tree restriction on local governments caused inflammation and heartburn statewide. That's an example of what causes me to think we need to keep at this and be conspicuous in our opposition.
Yeah, yes, and the representative who's moving that legislation, Representative Sabatini, has been vocal about this issue. I haven't heard a lot of traction about it, but I do think we can be vocal, and I would say that's one where we might want to just set up a direct dialogue with the representative or with the chairs of the committee where that bill is referenced to let it be known that there's specific opposition to it. Again, that's the sort of case where I think having a supplemental voice to the League of Cities can make a difference.
Right.
Where chairs of committees hear consistent opposition to a bill, they're less likely to agenda the bill. I haven't heard a significant amount of traction around that bill, which is why it actually slipped my mind when you asked the question. But that said, so long as it's out there, we should sort of assume it's a threat, and we'd be happy to facilitate conversations with the relevant committee chairs or vice chairs to kind of make sure our objections are known.
We should do that.
Right, absolutely. All right, I think it's been moved. Any other comments? Let's call the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, before we move on, I realize that items 8E and 8F on the consent agenda were advertised to have a public hearing. We did have a hearing on items 9B1 and 9B2, which were companion items of that. I was just wondering if we could maybe just make a quick announcement to see if anybody was here to speak on items 8, E and F that were on the consent agenda.
That would be yes. I mean, please make that. So the resolution providing for the uniform method of levying, collecting, and enforcing non-ad valorem assessments for solid waste fees. You want to read that into the record, Madam Clerk, and ask if anybody's available, if anybody wants to speak to that, and then the subsequent resolution.
Okay. A resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, providing for the uniform method of levying, collecting, and enforcing non-ad valorem assessments for solid waste fees in accordance with the provisions of Section 197.3632 Florida statutes throughout the incorporated area of the village, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Is anybody here to speak on that?
I would just read, you could read the second title too, and then just have one asking about.
Okay, fine.
A resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, providing for the uniform method of levying, collecting, and enforcing non-ad valorem assessments for stormwater services in accordance with the provisions of Section 197.3632 Florida statutes throughout the incorporated area of the village, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Do we need to move this?
No, I just think you can call to see if
all right. Is there anybody who wishes to speak from the public who wishes to speak on either of these items?
Does Peter want to
repeat? Pete, you want to just repeat your directions?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, watching at home on channel 77, channel 99, or streaming us live. If you wish to speak to these, please dial the number on your screen. That phone number is 305-365-7569. And the meeting ID is 231-627-8415. Once in the meeting, if you wish to speak, please dial *9. For those of you currently in the meeting and wish to speak, also please dial *9 or raise your virtual hand.
Anybody, Pete?
Mr. Mayor, I have no one signed up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Give it a second because there's a delay to channel 77.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give it 30 more seconds.
And Madam Clerk, you make sure you have this well recorded in the minutes.
Yes, sir.
That we opened up for public.
Okay, let's move to the next item.
Okay. Next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to issue a work order to KCI Technologies, Inc. for professional surveying services for stormwater utility and right-of-way improvements relating to the Master Island Survey Project in an amount not to exceed $500,000 and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, Madam Manager.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So we've spoken about this quite a few times. I'm just going to make 4 points and then we can open it up for discussion. First point is what are we doing? Why are we doing this? So the village is in need of a village-wide survey for the use of to be able to do our stormwater improvements, our roadway improvements that are necessary, as well as the utility undergrounding. So that's what this is. That's why we're doing this. It's a village-wide survey. I wanted to address some of the concerns that had been previously brought up to either myself in these public meetings or with staff privately. So my second point, I wanted to point out that previously we had presented a 6-task work order that added up to about 500,000. And we didn't call out in the memo, but I think it's important for everyone to know that we had already eliminated any scope of work that we felt was a nice to have and not necessarily a must have. So in the memo before you, we called out tasks 7 and 8, which would be nice for us to have, but we did not recommend proceeding with them. And the total dollar amount, it's about $300,000 that we had already eliminated from the scope. So we've taken those actions to really make sure we're bringing forth what is absolutely necessary to advance these projects. So that was the second point I wanted to make. The third point I wanted to make came up about recertifying the surveys and the timing of what we're trying to do. So I wanted to point out that as currently negotiated, we will get one recertification included in what is before you now. And then the fourth point I wanted to bring up along the same lines, since we last presented to council, we obtained pricing to break out the work into a series of awards. There was some questions from council about, do we really want to do this all at once or do we want to break it out? So for purposes of comparison, we did get pricing and it would cost the village about $80,000 more if we were to break up the work and mobilize in multiple steps as opposed to doing one village-wide survey. So those are the points that I wanted to make. I'm happy to answer any questions. Jake is also available. We also have Benjamin, who's the contractor or with the surveying firm, who can answer any questions as well. So Mayor.
Councilmember London, you're recognized.
You're muted, sir.
I didn't mute you, Ed. Don't look at me like that.
Are any of the survey tasks related to undergrounding of the utilities?
Yes.
Are these the surveys that would be done by the utility if they were to install the utilities underground? Such that if FPL, listen to me for a second, if FPL is going to underground our utilities, why wouldn't they also be responsible for the survey? Because that's what they would use to underground the utilities.
So under the current tariff, and I feel you, if we get legislative support and this goes a totally different route, I think you have a valid point. As the tariff currently stands, the village has to provide the survey to FPL for them to be able to produce the binding cost estimate and do the actual design. So this is an input they require from us.
But that is not a particular path that we're looking to follow right now.
Well,
it doesn't make
that's
a lot of sense to do that. The question is that FPL will do our system for free. The question is when. And the whole idea of the legislature is to move us up in the pecking order. So to me, to spend the money now to do surveying for undergrounding that we're not going to probably ever do seems like a total waste of money.
So I'm going to defer to Jake. If you could chime in on technically speaking, what specifically of this work, if we were to if there was a way to carve out anything that FPL would be doing, is there a way to segregate that or not? Can you speak to that?
Yes. FPL wouldn't do a survey. They would do some data collection. This survey, the product we get from KCI is above and beyond what would FPL need. This very important to understand that this survey is going to be applicable for 3 major projects: undergrounding, roadway improvements, and stormwater. If FPL was to do a survey, first of all, I don't know that they would hire their own surveys. Maybe they would put on us. Say they do their own survey, they would not do any topo. They would not do any right-of-way and boundary surveys. And all they would do is just walk down the street, mark up their own utilities, and draw some lines in their electrical plans, as they are not. They're more like a sketch versus a design plan. So, and again, this survey goes above and beyond what utility undergrounding projects requires. We go all the way to the front door of the house. We're going to capture finished floors. We're going to capture trees. Again, and just keeping in mind that this is going to be used for 3 major projects. That's why we need it. If only project to be at was undergrounding, and if there was a chance that the FPL was going to do it themselves, sure, you're right, but that's not where we're at.
Well,
hold on.
That's okay. Okay.
Councilmember,
answer what the thing is discussing. telling you something, I have a question to what he just said.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
All right.
Jake, normally when you're doing undergrounding, a surveyor sets up stations, and usually the underground contractor follows those stations, whether it be 100 feet apart, 200 feet apart, depending whether he's putting in piping or in this case, electricity, cables, whatever else. You're telling me that FPL probably would not do that? Are we going to do that?
I don't know. I don't know if FPL would do it, or maybe Benjamin, you guys do direct work for FPL too, right? Maybe you could answer.
Yes, FPL is actually one of our biggest clients, and we do a whole mix of stuff. When it comes to undergrounding, you know, usually they're doing directional boring, so they care about utility locates and just that they're within the right of way. It's a very minor survey. It does not serve the purposes, as Jake alluded to, of serving, you know, for stormwater, for roadway improvements, for FPL undergrounding. Their surveys are usually pretty basic, particularly for undergrounding. Like I said, all they care about is that they're trenching, you know, within the right of way and not in somebody's private property. They're
So
very.
my question to you then is, are we going to pay you to do something that FPL is going to do itself? So are we really paying for something we don't need to do? That's my question.
No, because we would be doing the survey for the stormwater and the other purposes. And then as the village manager mentioned, we will do that update whenever it comes to FPL for free. It's very minor work for us to go be within the right of way, because that's how FPL works. They don't want to obtain private easements, particularly for undergrounding, where they can just dig underneath the road. So we would be updating the survey for free because we believe it's that minor work. We're not that concerned about it.
Thank you.
Good. Sorry, Madam Manager, you raised your hand, and then Councilmember Moss, and then Councilmember Laredo.
Yeah, I was thinking of addressing Councilmember Vice Mayor Leonard's point, maybe in the inverse, that if we do find that there is some expense that we incur that we later find FPL should bear the cost of, is there an opportunity in that way to look at this?
No, that's not.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Moss, then Councilmember Laredo.
My understanding when we're talking about FPL and bearing the power, utilities, they're only going to be interested in bearing the power lines. We're going to still be on the hook to bury all the other utilities. I don't think my understanding is that they don't take any responsibility in any of the communication lines that need to be buried anyway. So, you know, I don't know how FPL is doing it with this system in other municipalities, if they're just basically taking down their own lines, putting them through, and not really opening this up to anybody else to put inside their trench? Or are they working with contractors and municipalities at the same time if they want to do this? So I think there's some stuff that we have to clarify on that end, Councilmember London, to see, you know, whether even if they were coming in, I don't think this is going to save us $36 million if FPL does the whole thing. We're still on the hook to do a lot of this work. And again, I don't know how much this falls in with surveying and which laterals they choose or don't choose in order to do this. So it's just something to think about.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've had, obviously, first of all, I start by thanking Jake, the same thing. I mean, he reached out to us to explain before the meeting, makes for better meetings and more efficient. I think we eliminated a lot of stuff from the last discussions, and I've come to the conclusion that what we basically have here is a high quality picture of our infrastructure, the highest quality picture of our infrastructure, which we need to have to move forward on anything. And I think the FPNL, in my experience, I don't know where Ed got the idea that FPNL will do this for free related to this item. But they do have a minimal, mostly related to right-of-way and liabilities therein. So while it sounds expensive, and I fought it at the beginning, I think this is something that we need, a high-quality infrastructure picture of our community that we can pick now. In executing this thing, and if we keep moving in the direction of infrastructure projects, we have an election and people voted for bonding, we need to start making decisions. And it doesn't mean that we're committed. We may decide not to do undergrounding. Who knows where this world is going? But to continue we have a reverse domino effect here. We don't want to do that because the other one hasn't been done. And then we're going to be here in the year 2050 or with the 2040 strategic committee deciding what we didn't decide. So if the administration and Jake and the new manager are cautious on how they spend this money, and I understand on the record that Jake told me that this is a very good price, professional. I have to trust their professional opinion. This is a good investment. It's a really basic investment. It's a necessary investment. Do I wish we didn't have to do it? Probably I wish we didn't have to do it, but we have to do it. So, and we can cross the FP&L, PSC issue later on. Who knows where that goes, including maybe some reimbursements. I mean, in public policy, things move. But I think it's important that we start making decisions related to infrastructure, particularly after, you know, the voters spoke, I think, that they want us to start doing something related to the infrastructure problems we have, not just underground. So in summary, I think I am as cheap as on fiscal responsibility as Ed, but this is, I think, in my view, a good, solid investment. And we got, I think, a fair price for it, negotiated for the stuff.
Councilmember Kaplan.
I agree with that. The things that we project as essential will require this work. There's just no question in my mind about that. One question on the staff proposal is the thinking behind separating out task 7 and 8 kind of a separate expenditure. I mean, I think ultimately we're going to need as-builts. Is the idea to do that later in time when projects are actually ready to proceed, as opposed to anticipatorily? Is that the thinking?
So it's not, this resolution before you does not award tasks 7 and 8. I wanted to show, the question had come up previously, that, you know, whether or not we were getting nice to haves or must haves. And I wanted to make it very clear to the council and the community that I think that they would be nice to have, but at this point, to get these infrastructure projects moving, they are not mission critical. So if at a later time, the council or this, you know, if the staff believes that it's time to pull the trigger on those, I'm confident that, you know, Jake and the team would bring something forth for your consideration.
I don't mean to be obdurate or skeptical, but I'm struggling to think about how as-builts wouldn't be essential when it comes time to dig dirt and install conduit and infrastructure in the ground.
Fair question. Jake, why don't you go for that one?
They are essential, but they are not required at this time. We may shift this to engineer record and have them collect this data, or we may do it ourselves. But to get things moving, 7 and 8 currently it's not essential. However, they may be within down the road in a couple of years. And,
so picking up on what you just said, is it within our capability, practically, feasibly, to do as-builts in-house?
Once the KCI produces a product, we may be able to do in-house as-builts based on the information the data we have.
Yes, our survey would provide all the rim elevations. So you could go measure down, pull the manhole, measure for the rim, get your as-built information. Furthermore, part of the discussions as we've been going through this, the sanitary sewer system is maintained by the county. Now, I have spoken to them. They do not have very active records. They do have GIS, which give you a pretty good idea. You know, if you know that your sewer and drainage lines are running down the center line of the road, you don't necessarily need to have all that information if you're going to be sticking between the edge of pavement and the edge of the right-of-way. I'm sure there's laterals, but you know, if the engineers decide they're going to dig so many feet deep, some of this or the full-blown 100% of it may not be necessary. But that is way down the road to determine.
One thing I've learned, WASD's records don't even include, I think, an accurate count of who's on sanitary sewer in Key Biscayne.
That's right. Councilmember Linda, did you have another comment? No. Councilmember Moss? I'm sorry.
Just to go back to the as-builts, I mean, we're going to have multiple projects going on. So an as-built for me is just a shot in time. So it seems like at some point you just have to resurvey whatever has been different from whatever is new at some point. I mean, would we resurvey at some point, or is it after each project? Let's say we do on stormwater first, but we haven't done underground, for electricity. We're gonna have to do 2 as-built after each project. How do we determine that?
No, those as-built would be responsible to the contractor to provide. This as-built, the task 7 and 8 actually have an as-built of our existing system, existing sanitary and existing storm sewer that we have today.
Okay.
Everything else that we're gonna build, the contractor, before closing out the project, they'll provide as-built for our approval.
I guess my question is then, how often do we have to update our survey? Once we have this one, every 10 years, every 20 years?
Whenever we do a project.
Right. How fast we go on projects will dictate how much we're gonna have to update. But once we have a good baseline with this, which this task order is gonna provide, we'll be able to keep up with it and keep it a living document.
Okay. So you guys will keep the utmost updated.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
That's great.
Did prior contractors do any of this as-built work, current as-built? We had Corradino, we had EAC. Did any of that work move forward?
You want to talk?
I'm sure when they did the store installation on Key Biscayne, they must have as-bills for all the store lines, and I'm sure Dade County Water and Sewer Department has them. I would be shocked if they didn't. So therefore, they know the inverts of all the pipes and all the as-bills for everything.
If you're referring to the center, yes, those as-bills that we have.
That's the sanitary sewers, though, not the storm sewers.
Well, the storm sewers that we put in, I'm sure we have that also. I mean, Jake, when a contractor goes ahead and puts in a disposal well for you or puts in piping, doesn't you have an as-built for that with inverts and everything else?
We do. Anything that's been done past 10 years, we do. But everything else, I mean, 80% of the storm sewer that we have in the Key Biscayne, we don't have records of. And every time we go, we find surprises.
To be clear, it's not being included in this price.
Correct.
It's not being included in this. The as-bills are not being included here. So this is on the issues. And, I think Councilmember Laredo stole my notes because he said it exactly right. The people have spoken. They want us to get these projects going. This is the first step. We need to get moving. Let's call the question unless Councilmember Segarola or McCormick have anything to say.
I don't have much new to add that hasn't already been said. I just would like to say I know staff was frustrated when we first asked them to relook at this, but I'd like to commend them. I think they did a good job, and I think we all feel good about having seen the way the voters voted, and I'm ready to move forward with this.
Call the question.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it.
But Ms. Mayor, just before, because I was one of the ones, it's important, and I know the manager is not going to be around, but Jake, it's very important for staff to help us as public officials in communications. It's been 2 years I've been on this thing. And this sounds trivial, but you talk about professional surveying services. Let's just change the words. Let's call it engineering. So engineering is a word that people get grounded in with something being done for a very tangible thing. Survey includes, in common usage, is sort of consulting, study, and all the stuff that I'm against. Now, seriously, words are very, very important in communicating to the people who elect us and who pay the bills. It sounds to you like a trivial matter, but even if you look at it, it sounds like, what is the survey? What do you guys?
I'm laughing because people came up to me. They said, I thought we did a survey already.
Another survey.
Same land survey, you have no problem.
So just change the words
you have no problem.
Change the words henceforth to engineering or anything that has to do with the actual project, please.
Okay. Noted, sir. We'll change terminology as we can.
Thank you very much.
All right. Call the question.
Mayor Davey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor London?
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Segarola?
Yes.
Congratulations. Keep
Hold on.
working.
Onward and upward.
Now, Islander, this should be your headline. We started. We started building Highlander.
That's right. All right, next item.
Item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution, a capital authorizing resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, selecting Florida Engineering and Development Corp. For the Fernwood Road Parking and Drainage Improvements Project in an amount not to exceed $370,000, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, so I'm the one who asked for reconsideration on this. I got a reverb here. But I had concerns about gas. I think it's mad when I do that. Okay. You're muted, Ed, just so you know. So, you know, I would like to reconsider the AstroTurf. The work I think needs to be done. I don't like the idea of putting AstroTurf down there. I think it sets a bad precedent for all of us. So that's specifically what I wanted to bring back for reconsideration. If everybody wants to, I guess I'll turn it over to the manager, who will turn it over to Jake, who will discuss, and then everybody can have their say.
That's it. So what we did, we included for the agenda the exact item that we had presented before. Jake had looked at some different alternatives. So I am going to turn it over to Jake to share his screen and walk the council through some alternative approaches that you can consider.
Thank you, Manager. Yes, so I'm just going to summarize what we have done to date. Initially, project included a base bid and alternate one, base being having conventional asphalt parking area, which came with additional drainage improvements that we would have to put on the Fernwood Road. Alternate one included pervious concrete. We got that bid as well. And alternate two included synthetic turf on 12-inch stone. Furthermore, after the last meeting, I got with the contractor and looked at pricing for pervious pavers. So in front of you, I'm showing you 4 different prices, and I'll go explain what these numbers mean. Alternatives with 12-inch stone base. 12-inch stone base is basically the reservoir under the parking area that provides storage for stormwater. Engineering analysis showed 12-inch, and I did additional value engineering. We may be able to go down to 6-inch stone base, which does not really save that much money. We get about 10% of cost savings on the stone price. Now, the base bid for this contract is $245,822. And pervious concrete is additional $224,000 on the base bid. But what you will notice is the base bid for pervious concrete goes down because once you do any sort of green infrastructures in the parking area, you no longer have to provide drainage improvements under Fernwood Road. So we have cost savings there. Additional $224,000, total comes up to be $434,000, which net change of $88,000 when you compare to base bid. Pervious pavers are our second option, second cheaper option. Comes with $63,988 additional cost on top of base bid. And synthetic turf is actually $23,000 less than conventional asphalt. The second table at the bottom is it's 6-inch stone base. Again, base bid is $245,000. If you go with pervious concrete, total bid becomes $411. Pervious pavers becomes $387, and synthetic turf becomes $304,000. So those are the 4 options that you have in front of you that you can pick, ranging anywhere from $434,000 down to $322 for 12-inch stone base. And based on the value engineering that I did, my professional recommendation would be go with the higher number, 12-inch stone base. And I'm going to show some pictures for the pervious pavers. Pervious concrete would be same exact thing that we did sample on Harbor Park. and it's the most expensive option, and however, its maintenance is a lot less as compared to previous pavers. The previous pavers has risk of differential settlement. Our current contract price that I gave you has 3 options in terms of color. It's kind of like a light brownish. I think they call it Napoli. This is more like a clay brick color.
We're not seeing anything. We're not seeing anything other than the spreadsheet, or I'm not anyway.
Okay.
It's okay.
It said pose. Okay, let me see.
Hey, Councilman Moss.
Councilman Moss?
Yes.
Can you help me with this? What do you think? I want to give you your opinion. I don't want to go through all the bidding and all that stuff. Do you have a problem with the aesthetics, Mayor, the aesthetics and everything else?
I don't care. Yeah, I'm right with you. I just want them. I want the most. I mean, when we do something, I want it to be cost efficient, but I just, yeah, and look good. But I also want it to be durable. The most durable is really, you know, if it's going to save us money long run to do, you know, to do the concrete over the pavers, you know. But I want to hear from the, as you say, I'd like to hear from Vice Mayor and then Councilmember Moss.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that, you know, I voted no against this. I think I was the only person who voted no against it because of the artificial turf there.
Right.
Because a couple of things I'm concerned of. One, it's not consistent, I think, with what we do throughout the village. We've only allowed artificial turf in private areas that are not visible from.
No, I agree with you. I'm against the artificial turf now as well. And which do you like, the concrete or the pavers?
Yeah, and playing fields. So, I mean, personally, I think the pavers are what I would select. The reason why is because that's what we have there right now. And there was a reason why we set that standard to have pavers there. I think pavers looks nicer. It looks like a higher standard. And if we can make those pervious as much as possible, I think that, you know, that would be where I would lie on that table looking at it.
Well, I move whatever it needs to be moved as a resolution to support that.
Vice Mayor London, what did you have to say?
Well, the pavers look very nice now. The pavers look very nice around the traffic circles and other places in Key Biscayne. But we all know what happens after
a while. There's different.
We couldn't hear you. Now we can.
Okay. I said the pavers look nice. They're wonderful. Unfortunately, when the cars running over them over a period of time, there's differential settlement, and some look up, some down. It's really not a great item to use there. So I wouldn't consider that. As far as saying we don't use AstroTurf anywhere, the biggest AstroTurf thing we have are the playing fields. This backs up to the playing fields. So I don't understand the whole big fight of not using this when you have the entire playing fields with AstroTurf. So to me, AstroTurf, you know, is easy to maintain, and basically it fits in what we have. And what's more, it's the least expensive option because we don't know whether we're really going to like this thing anyway. So I'm all for using the AstroTurf at this point.
Councilmember Kaplan?
We imposed a not turf ban, but turf restriction for what I consider to be excellent reasons. The aesthetic of artificial turf does not go in this community, in my opinion. The reason for the fields was, I think, best understood as probably the most reluctantly reached decision possibly in the history of the village. It was necessary because there was no solution to maintain fields. There was a serious discussion about actually degrading the frequency of athletic use to be able to better tolerate the turf field. That was a serious proposition because there was so much antipathy to the artificial turf. When the vote was finally, when the conclusion came about that the vote was going to be necessary or we wouldn't be able to sustain an athletic program, we actually went to the trouble of funding an unwind fund, which you may remember stands for the proposition of restoring the turf to a natural condition when technology enables that to happen. The deterioration look on artificial turf when you see what happens when vehicles drive over it is significantly worse than pavers settling. So I would, and I looked at the concrete pour. That's the pour that's on the Enid side of the Harbor Park. Is that right? There's a little patch.
McIntyre.
On McIntyre.
Right.
So what is, I've heard from others, but I think to ask, is the proposition that occurred to your council in the last term that that's simply not an attractive feature? It's simply aesthetics. Is that right?
No.
Because, the brave new world that we will be talking about inevitably in zoning and otherwise is permeability. And what materials are going to be able to be utilized to create the infrastructural effects that we need and the street support and support in the swales and still be permeable. I'm ready to take an experiment on what that material should be. And if your collective decision was to rule out on aesthetic grounds the concrete, I'm okay with that. And we'll see what happens in terms of the aesthetics with concrete soon. Things are always improving. They're always changing. I'd go with the pavers, and I'm ready to make that decision.
Frank, if I could just also
hold on,
add,
Councilmember McCormick, Councilmember
can I
Segarola?
answer his question about why we didn't choose that?
Sure, certainly.
The other reason was the engineer from Kimley Horn had really advised us against it because of the ongoing maintenance cost, that it needs to be vacuumed and things. So I think while you're right, the aesthetics was a driver, there was a little bit more to it.
Councilmember Segarola?
I'm fine with keeping the turf. I think it'll do the job that was discussed at the last meeting. But if you were going to make a change, I think we should go with the concrete because the pavers are going to get torn up there with all the traffic and all the parking. That's one of the highest traffic areas in the whole village. And in a short while, we're going to be spending more money to fix it if there's pavers. Just my 2 cents.
Hold on. Councilmember McCormick, did you want to say anything more? Because I did.
Sorry, I just want to be clear. The pavers would be for the parking or the whole road?
For the parking.
Okay.
Not for the whole road, just for the parking, correct?
Just for the parking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and the reason I brought this back is, Frank and I vehemently disagree about AstroTurf. Frankly, I think it was a good thing because we did need it for the fields. Everybody loves to play on grass, but we needed to do it. I don't have a problem if people want to put AstroTurf in their yards as long as it meets a certain aesthetic. This battle started, I think, about 8 years ago while I was on council, and I opposed it, but I just don't, from after discussing with people what it would look like to be driven over on a constant basis, I agree with Frank on that point, that it just wears down and it doesn't sustain itself very well. So I'm inclined to go with the pavers, but I would, hopefully we'll get to, we'll have a vote and we'll see where we go. Councilmember Moss, and then, I'm sorry, Councilmember Laredo, did you raise your hand?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think we undervalue aesthetics. It really drives aesthetics can be quantitatively affect prices. If things look nice, if we have nice landscaping, we have an art in public places, putting art so that make this whole thing aesthetically a wonderful community, and anything that degrades that for practicality, I think is penny wise and dollar stupid. Pavers, I'm not technically, that's why I turned to the architect in the group. I think if we have instilled in our management what we talked about before, and I brought it up, the culture of maintenance, the sinking of the pavers can be prevented before a major repair if we have constant supervision and maintenance over time. What we've had in areas like the circles that we are disappointed with, and London correctly calls it not correct, is they just are neglected. And one sinking part continues to be sinking. And my madness is our staff drives around the same place and they don't stop and say, we got to fix this. So I don't think you should underestimate the value of aesthetics. It is not the pie in the sky, it's dollars and cents in increasing the value of the properties in this community. And we are spending a lot of money to have nice parks, to have nice artwork, and this is consistent. And I think it's the right thing to do, the paver. And I've heard from people who know, and just hopefully that Public Works will do a better job of ongoing maintenance.
Councilmember Moss?
Yeah, two questions. One, in that parking area, I believe I have not seen any settling pavers there currently, and those are all pavers right now. Are they settling in the parking area? I understand around the circles, but that's a different amount of traffic and a different speed that trucks and buses and things are crossing. Are they settling poorly there? Because I haven't seen it.
They hold up a lot better than traffic circles, and pavers in this area is not as susceptible to settling as traffic circle because it's not high-speed traffic, it's slow-speed parking. One thing to note that, again, they may be more prone to settle there because they're going to have stone subbase. So underneath the stone, subbase compaction is important. So we're going to have a good eye on construction and construction quality. Again, overall, yes, you have a correct statement. It's less susceptible to overall settlement as compared to traffic circles.
And Jake, you were going to show us an example of what type of pavers we might be using. I think that would be another thing that we do need to look at.
Sure.
They're going to look like what's out there right now, or they're going to look completely different?
There are a few different colors. Let me share my screen. And again, there are a variety of products out there, but I asked contractor to show me some samples, keeping cost in mind. This is one picture.
But that's very similar to what we have out there now, correct?
Yeah, it is. And this is another one installed pattern. But there are 3 colors available. I forgot what this was called, but it's kind of like a washed off brownish. And then this is more conventional clay colored brick. And then this is more of a concrete looking gray. This may be a good application, but what we'll do is I'll get samples if council chooses to go with pavers, and then we can make a decision on what exact color they want to do. But pricing does not differ on which color we want to go with.
I mean, I personally would think that whatever we could do to get as close as what we have out there right now would tie into everything else on the island. If you guys can figure that out, I'll be okay with that.
I go further. I like to delegate that you select the ones that after we pass this, so here they have to reach out to 7 of us. I trust your sense of aesthetics and the look of the overall village. So if you don't mind,
all right. So to get something for us to vote on, sorry, Ed, I'm going to mute you again.
Sorry, I have a question before we vote.
Go ahead, Allison.
Jake,
Councilmember McCormick.
just a question about the pavers, the way that they're set with the space between them. Is there an expectation that there'll be more issues with settling than ones that are placed like with mortar or whatever they use?
Yes, because you have to have gaps in between. I think there are 1/2-inch openings between the pavers, which is going to be filled with fine gravel. And also they sit on 12-inch stone that can only be compacted to a certain compaction percentage. And again, it's construction quality is very important. We'll have to keep a good eye on contractor doing a good job. But if he compact the subbase good and the drainage reservoir underneath built correctly, I think they will hold up well for a number of years.
Do they give a warranty?
There's 2 separate warranties. The performance warranty on the paver is separate. That's going to withstand the traffic load. But as far as the settlement, that's the contractor warranty, at least 1 year.
Okay, I'm going to move the 12-inch stone base with the permeable pavers.
Second.
Okay.
Can we get the cost of that read out aloud? I know the title of the resolution said not to exceed $370. What was the cost for that?
It's $434,135.50.
So how did that?
So we'll have to just adopt the resolution as amended with that number.
And we'd also have to bring back a budget amendment to find those funds.
Okay. I have a moved and a seconded.
Councilmember Kaplan, second. I didn't.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All
I
those,
apologize. I read the wrong number. It's actually 409,811.
Or what?
409 instead of 434.
Right, 409,811.
$30,000 more or less.
Yes.
Okay.
Almost 40.
And
We need to
and,
vote.
Yeah, we as
we
amended.
also need, yeah, and we also need to include to make the record clear for the asphalt pavers to be included, right, Jake?
The permeable pavers.
The permeable pavers.
Yes. Yes.
To
Okay.
be included. Correct.
So the scope will be amended to reflect that. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Can you call the roll call?
You're voting on the motion.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay,
Can I
now we're
make a
voting
motion to,
now we're voting on the resolution. Sorry. I'm sorry, Councilmember Loretta, did you have a motion on
I
the?
just wanted to make it formal that we delegate our authority to Councilmember Moss to make the final decision with Jake on our behalf on the actual things that he thinks aesthetically fits within the scope of this policy decision.
I'm good with that. I'd like to.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, second. Yeah, he'll bring it back, but fine.
You want me to bring it back and then?
No, just do
I
it.
don't know you need to bring it back, but I'd like to know what your decision
Yeah,
is.
just tell us what your decision is.
I know I'm going to try to find something as close to what we have out there, but I'll have them just curse it to all of you guys.
Go
Is
ahead.
that consensus of council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's move to the resolution.
Resolution, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ed opposed.
Opposing.
No, you were muted. They couldn't hear you. That's just what I was telling. I wasn't making fun of you yet.
I have one opposed, Vice Mayor London.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
All right, and I believe Frank Rollison is here today, right now.
Yes, thank you. May I, Mayor?
Please.
Great, thank you. So I would like to congratulate Chief Lang and Jake Oseman and the staff that supported them. We've been working very closely with the county, with the City of Miami, with the University of Miami, with the Seaquarium, folks on the state level to come up with a contingency plan. God forbid we have a catastrophic failure of the Bearcut Bridge. We wanted to have an emergency management plan in place so that we could quickly deploy pontoon bridges to be able to get our residents on and off the island as quickly as possible after such an event. So Mr. Frank Rollison is with us here. He is the Director of Emergency Management for Miami-Dade County. He spearheaded this program or this initiative for the county and on behalf of the village and our residents. So Mr. Rollison, thank you very much on behalf of the village for your efforts. And Mayor, if I may turn it over to Mr. Rollison to give a quick 30-second, 1 minute overview of the plan, and then he can field any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council and manager. It's been a long haul on this one, and back in late 2018, I was attending a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers dealing with the beginning phases of the back bay study. And at the close of that meeting, Councilmember Laredo approached me and asked me about the Bearcut Bridge and what kind of plans the county had in the event that there was a catastrophic failure and the impact it would have on the, the village and so forth. And so I told him I'd look into it. And when I went back, I found that there really was no contingency plan to address that event that he was speaking of. As I looked into it with the county engineers, the bridge engineers, their position was that we were looking to create something for an event that was not going to take place. And hopefully we have done that. And we've created a plan for something that'll never have to be implemented. What you have in front of you is an aspirational plan of how the county, in concert with the state and the village, would go forward in the event that there would be a catastrophic failure, either man-made or natural. When I say aspirational, when I dealt with the state Division of Emergency Management on what we could do to try to accelerate the process in the event that there was a failure to get a temporary bridge installed, the first thing they said is that there would have to be a plan that was in place that showed there was a level of commitment by those that would be affected, that they had taken this hypothetical event into consideration and that they had agreed to some methodology of going forward should such an event take place. So that's what you have before you. When you read through it, there's a lot of language in there, but the meat of it is in the appendix that you have, which I think is number 3. Let me look here and see what I got in front of me. I think it's, appendix number 3, which I show on page 27. There's a couple iterations. Right now, the signature page is going around to the parties to sign off. And because of what we're in with COVID, we're running it from one place to another. But the package has been approved by the county, the Parks Department in the county, which is, you may think kind of odd, and it probably is, but the causeway and the bridges are under the Parks and Recreation and not under Public Works in the county. So the lead agency were an event to take place like this at this point would be Parks, Recreation, Open Spaces, and Public Works would be a support agency and in all likelihood be the real lead in the technical side of what had to be done from that standpoint. But in putting this document together, there were a lot of hoops that everybody had to jump through, that your manager was very helpful with us with Seaquarium and the University of Miami. And I guess one of the biggest concerns that came up right at the tail end was the University of Miami concerned about access to the Rosenstiel building and damage to their infrastructure. We finally convinced them that if it got to the point that that bridge went, there probably wouldn't be much left of the Rosenstiel building either. So they have finally bought into it with some modifications that we made and agreements for them to be able to cut through either the Seaquarium property or a different iteration of the access there at that light from both sides of the bridge. So you have the package in front of you there. That appendix, which is really unique about that, is that it really gives you the steps that we would go through should an event take place. If it's a natural event, it would be through the Florida Division of Emergency Management and with FEMA. And it would still be the Army Corps that would be the primary agency that would determine what type of bridge and where to install the bridge. But we've already had preliminary discussions with them. They have been on site, and the layout that we have, they have said is the most logical way to go from the marina across and onto that parking lot at Rosenstiel. If it's a man-made event, we would still put the issue through to the state at the emergency management, but then it would be a presidential order with the military to then would pass it on to the Army Corps, and they would come in and do the bridge. So there's two paths depending on what type of event causes the catastrophe. So what's unique about that appendix is that, according to the director, Jared Moskowitz up at the state of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, this is the first time that the state has signed off on a plan that has been developed at a local level. And I tried to get that to take place so that down the road, if something were ever to happen and, you know, we're not there and this thing dusted off on a shelf, that they will show that the state bought into this procedure that is here. And what this does for all of us is it accelerates the process and not them having to come after the event's taken place to find out what the level of commitment is on everybody's part to come in and put this bridge in. So it saves time, and if we were to make a request to do this, we would submit this plan as part of that request so that they could see that back at this time, this was considered and there was thought by all the agencies involved, and there was agreement that this is the process that we would follow to get this done. So with that being said, I will, and one other thing I want to mention is that Jake was a great help to us in the efforts that we did on the structural side and dealing with the engineers, with the county and the drawings and everything that took place, and the manager also. So I'm open for any questions. If you have any, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and fellow councilmen, and more importantly, whoever and the regular citizens who are watching us. This is a profile, Mr. Frank Larson, of a dedicated public servant. We have a tendency to put down professional, call them bureaucrats. This gentleman who I met by coincidence in a meeting is, and I mean a gentleman, with patience and focus, is giving us results. And I think we owe him particularly a big, all of the citizens give his game a gratitude. He stayed on it. He just got it done. And I don't know how he did it. The jungle of jurisdiction in the county and bringing in, like you said, the state, and we were hands off. He was leading, and that's an exceptional public servant, and he needs to be recognized. We're in your gratitude, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
No, we appreciate everything you've done.
The only thing he said wrong is that Jake was a good guy.
Well, I said that just like he wrote it.
Perfect. Thank you, sir, for everything you've done.
May I ask?
Of course, go ahead.
Without cutting into my gratitude for this hard work, first of all, the confidentiality paragraph at the beginning caught my attention. I'm reluctant to say too much, given that introductory paragraph about security.
Right.
But yeah.
It's a lot of this, and we found that out when the Key Biscayne requested the reports and everything of the structural examinations of the bridge, when we talked about the structural part. And the county said, no, you can't have those, but they were willing to have your engineers come to the county facility and view those documents. But after the 9/11, there have been a lot of documents, especially with structural issues, that have been made not public record. And that's the reason for that.
Well, then I'll address what I wanted to talk about very cryptically, very obscurely. It has to do with the useful life presumption, and as it might correlate with what's described in here as the NBI Health Index, recognizing the geography that we're in, you know, the headway of this bridge in an area that's prone to storms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for now, I'll just leave it at that and hope that we can have a subsequent conversation.
Well, we certainly can. And I think on the structural side, the county still has that offer open. The bridge, Dennis Fernandez, who was a bridge engineer for the state in our district, District 6 with FDOT, he came to work for the county. He subsequently is now heading up another section in Public Works, but the engineer that's in charge of the bridges, the offer is still there to consult and have your engineers share with whatever that they have. And the bridge goes under regular structural evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is going on, and they are willing to share that with you one-on-one type of a meeting.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that report.
Well, you're certainly welcome. It was a pleasure dealing with the professional people that were on your side of the island. And, you know, sometimes we're looked at as maybe not the best partners in dealing with things, but I can tell you that in emergency management, we're there to help you.
Understood, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item. You're muted.
I'm sorry. The next item is the manager's ongoing project update.
Well, this has been working well for me the last few meetings. So we have a written report. It is pretty self-explanatory. If there are any questions or anything anybody wants to point out or highlight, we're happy to answer any questions for you.
I wanted to, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember, you're recognized. Councilmember Laredo.
To implore in some sort of follow-up. I said this at the last meeting of the outgoing manager. We're going to discuss later the time, but this should be on a checklist as a requirement for the new manager in the briefings and debriefings that we do, or the professional as he or she comes on board. This is very helpful, and it makes for information to share with citizens, and also for these meetings to be more efficient. So I commend you for what you've done, and I want to institutionalize it.
I think that's an excellent idea.
We have no objection to that. And I'll also add, I have a list of, I don't know, several hundred items we've been assigned. And my goal is within the next week or so, I'm just pending a few updates from some of our department heads. And I'd like to post that on our website. So it's basically every meeting since I've been here, every directive I've been given, what after actions were assigned, who they were assigned to, and what the current status is. So keep a lookout for that. And if there's and to Councilmember Laredo's point, if there's anything that you want to add to this report that's of interest, we can do that too.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
The next item, Mr. Mayor's reports and recommendations, mayor and council members, next steps regarding village manager recruitment, procedures, processes, and background checks.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
may
Yeah.
I,
Hold
before
on.
you speak on that, may I ask you something very briefly, because it concerns
Certainly.
I know that sometimes I should be quiet, but I'm holding. The beginning of this meeting was very unpleasant, and I know that the gentleman who called, or the person who called, on this anti-mask, I had a lot of as I'm sure you did too, a lot of thoughtful and courteous emails, intelligent on this issue, that I respected those emails. I differ for them because this is a matter of life and death. But I cannot go on without telling whoever that person was. Supposedly calls himself the representative of the people of Key Biscayne. I never seen anything more aggressive, and more discourteous, more threatening. And I know a lot of times he directed it at you, and I was going to interrupt him, but and then he just went on. And when I think I reached my limit, when he started quoting from the Nuremberg trials, which is the trials of the Nazi criminals, and I just think this is as You know, the wise thing to do is keep quiet, but I think that the people who called immediately thereafter were respectful, and this does a disservice to those people who wrote nice emails, and I don't believe, and as you move forward in your mayorship, maybe we ought to start cutting some of these people off. It was astonishing. I thought it was going to get better, and it actually, I mean, we went into Nazi trials, and pretty soon we're, so I apologize, but I wanted to stand up for you at the time.
I appreciate it. But
you don't deserve that kind. You and I have a lot of differences, but that was a real low for me in 2 years I've been here, and I just needed to get it off my chest.
Thank you. Okay, so let's. No worries. All right, let's talk about the village manager. Her time is up at the end of this month, and we're going to have to figure out a few steps and how we want to proceed. We are still, as I understand it, we now have 20 plus resumes, applicants in the system. One of the things we've got to talk about is what are we going to do when Andrea leaves? How are we going to handle that step? And then more about, to the point that was brought up by Steve Simon, I think other people have spoken about it. What are our processes and procedures going forward? I like how many applicants we've got. I don't think we need to bring anybody in to cull down the numbers. I think that's on us. We are the people who are going to make this decision. But I do want to have a talk about having an acting manager because we're going to need it. I am not in favor of bringing somebody in on an interim basis, if you will. But we're going to need somebody to we're going to need to have somebody on board. I would recommend that we bring in that we use Chief Press. He's expressed no interest in the job permanently, and so I think as somebody on a temporary basis, because I hope to have this done over the next 2 months at the latest, 60 days, I think we can have this done. And that's where I am. But I would like to talk to you more about some of the ideas about the process we're going to go through as we whittle down to 5 each, and then we come forward and we go through that process a little more intensely. Councilmember London, you raised your hand.
Yes. I suggest that December 30th to 31st.
Put your mic on, Ed.
No, he's on. He's on.
I'm on, mate. Come on, Frank. Anyway, I suggest that waiting until December 30th to 31st is not necessary. As Mike has said, we have almost 20 applicants. Of the 20 applicants for the position, in my review, I've talked to a whole bunch of them, and I think we're very fortunate. I think the pool of people who have applied for this job are tremendous. I mean, these are really first-class, incredible people. And I really think at this point, instead of dragging things out, we make another blast or whatever is necessary to say we now are changing the date till the 14th, the 15th, which is next Tuesday, at which point we close it off. And then I believe it behooves all of us that we look at the things. And you know what? There are a lot of the people there that we can say, you know what? There might be good people, but not be suited for us. And the other people we should really be contacting, each one of us, if we want to. So we get a firsthand knowledge of these people. What do we think about them? We then go ahead and we list, you said 5, 3, I would say 3 people. We list our top 3. So now the 7 of us list the top 3 people that we have. It's tabulated. Now we get 3 people that we all consensus that these are the people we really think will make a good manager no matter what. We can't lose with any of these 3. At that point, we look at Steve Simon's suggestion because he's basically saying that Juan is going to be doing the background checks on all these people, the credit checks, the criminal checks, all those other checks, which are easy to do with outside agencies. Then what Steve is proposing is 2 things. One I think which is very interesting, and that is a simulation where this Connie Hoffman would go ahead and give them a particular thing that might come up, a situation that might come up in the role of a manager. How would they react? What would they do? How would they handle it? And she would evaluate it, at least give us what happened. And then she'd give another role, 2 or 3 roles she would give these people, basically playing manager, even though you're not manager, and see how they react, what they would do. what assets they would employ, what people they would employ, what the time frame they would do, and what the plan would be. And that would be number one. Number two, of course, I also believe in the psychological testing. I didn't believe before, but my experience in the past X amount of years, I don't want to tell you how many, is that it's really important to have people, number one, mentally capable to do the job, although I think all these people are mentally probably capable, but I still like to have a check. And the other thing is the personality test and the, the aptitude test. So if these people that Steve is mentioning could do that for us, I think there's no reason why by the 15th we have the applicants in. We give ourselves another 5 or 10 days to come up with 3 of them. And then after that, we'll have Connie or this other gentleman go ahead and do the testing and the, and the evaluations and the simulations. So by the beginning of the year or shortly thereafter, we have 3 people, we have 3 results, and then we make a final decision. So hopefully by the second week in January, we have a new manager. And we don't drag this thing out like we drag everything out. We move forward, get it done, assume it's important, and assume we have some good people right now to choose from.
Councilmember Moss, then Councilmember Laredo.
I just wanted to say, I think that going through the process that you're talking about, Councilmember London, is okay with me. The only thing I would change maybe is not to limit it down to 3 and then start to do the background checks and everything else. I would think we would have to have a little bit more because we find out that, we disqualify a couple because of something, or we find something in their backgrounds, maybe we're going to be short by the time that we want to make our final pick. Maybe we limit it down to the top 7 and then do the background checks and come back with that. Maybe that limits us down to top 5 or top 4 because of that. I just want to make sure that, I'm not sure if we want to limit down to 3 first and then start doing the background checks, or maybe do some of these checks a little bit earlier.
Councilmember Laredo, and then Councilmember Kaplan.
See if we can get some consensus. First of all, I agree most of Ed London's, except the idea of outsourcing, as per Dr. Simons. We keep crossing bridges and back and forth. We decided that to keep it simple, that the results have been very successful in terms of the quality of people who have applied. And to be honest with you, Yvette didn't say it for diplomatic reasons. There are a lot of obvious rejects in terms of they not fit our profile. And I think we can very quickly, I think it's very wise to move this to December 15th. Remember, we had originally said 10 days. And maybe to tag to Councilwoman Moss, have 5 that do the background check. And at that time, or we can meet whether I think human resources can do it, or specifically, maybe other companies that Juan had told us about. I'm not into pre-picking people based on past experience, but so I would like to support the cutoff of the 15th with an idea to give back to, and by the way, Juan is doing a great job on that thing that he has developed. I think it's up to 26 actually today or thereabouts. And the way he did that graph is really very easy for me to go through it and move this process so that we could probably have a decision by, if not the 12th of January, the meeting immediately 2 weeks after. But it would be great because otherwise we're going to have a gap.
Chad, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember. You're not done.
No, I mean, if that's okay with you, I just wanted to, one thing that we talked about very fast, but I'm ready to break up these decisions.
Well, I think the first question is, I just have to ask Chad.
Yeah.
Chad, can we put the 31st as our day? I mean, what are we opening ourselves? My concern would be somebody, again, this is public sector, so you're gonna be able to tell me. Are we going to set ourselves up for a potential lawsuit if we say, okay, it was the 31st, but we've decided it's the 15th? I mean, I guess if we did it universally, potentially, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that before we move.
No, it's within your discretion, this process. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you could cancel the process today if you wanted to.
Right. Councilmember Kaplan?
Well, since it's in our discretion, I would exercise the discretion to keep it as it is. I will not support shortening the time. We will look ridiculous. We've gone out to market to do a professional process. It looks like we've prejudged based on what's come in, and that's just not good. So I won't support that. Pretty much Ed's synopsis is consistent with the way I'm looking at this. I see no harm and no reason not to make a decision on an interim or enacting, whatever word you want to use. We're going to need that. The chief press is fine. He served in that capacity many times, perfectly comfortable with that. One of the things that I have learned doing this twice before is an independent backstop, backup, support seems to me to be critical. We will make the decisions ultimately, but to have a consultant or a series of consultants working in tandem, cooperatively, working on a program that gives us the independent due diligence that we may or may not be able to discern ourselves because of bias or what have you, will prevent us from being, let's say, charmed by a slick talking, good promoter, and really dig deep on the critical question of who this person is that we're going to be living with and relying on. It's, as we all know, it's a mission critical job. We need to get it right. And I think that what I've learned about the simulations that Ed described make a heck of a lot of sense. They're relevant, fictitious, but, assuming they're conducted well, role model experiences on how a given person would react to various provocations or situations. Am I tuned up? Sorry about that. The other part of this is the emotional, psychological part. What I've learned about that is very germane from my point of view. Getting at, people, how they process information, how they think, how they come to conclusions. Intellectual honesty and open-mindedness being material elements of that process. What they value, what their motivations are, and how they prioritize things, and how they relate to other people, behavioral aspects. These are, this is a people job, and these are important skills that it's easy, I think, to misread in the time compacted and time pressure and mission pressure job it is to meet all of these people in short stints and come to an intelligent decision. So I'd be inclined to price both of the psychological evaluations and the role playing simulations that we've learned about. And once we get to a manageable, and I mean small number, whether it's 5 or probably 5, we go through that exercise. It won't take long. It'll benefit us. Then we've got to talk about, in a COVID environment, interviewing and introducing people to the community. But in the meantime, we'll have an acting manager in place and the time that it takes to do this will be another couple of weeks, and it won't matter, and we'll do it right.
Okay. Councilmember Segarola, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah. I'm in agreement with pretty much everything. I think Dr. Simon, what he forwarded to us was a very good ground plan for how to proceed forward, including the testing and everything. I am, like Councilmember Kaplan, totally against changing the date. I think we're going to look like idiots if halfway through the game we suddenly decide, hey, we're cutting it off now. We're going to lose all credibility out there in the market with the public. I have absolutely no problem appointing Chief Press as the interim or as the acting manager with the caveat that he not be a candidate for the manager's position in the future. And like that, we have settled that tonight. We know what our process is going to be over the next 30 days. We, as Dr. Simon stated in his suggestions, I think it is very important that we use the assets we already do have, specifically Juan, in the administration, to immediately weed out the people that just don't meet the minimum standards, and there's several of them, and this is not a judgment on them as people, simply as meeting the standards that we asked for in our ad. Besides that, we proceed and do our background checks, and we meet in January and potentially be in a position to pick our new manager.
Okay. Councilmember, yes, Councilmember McCormick.
I also am in agreement. I'm not interested in changing the date. I'm going to try to be real concise here since I have no video. I don't want to change the date. I would like to have some formal process, either be what Dr. Simon sent to us, or I don't know if any of you, we spoke at our last meeting that we were going to, or that I had suggested that people maybe talk to Chief Lang about the service he uses, which is called Town Plus. I've spoken with his contact there. I really like their work product. And I asked her to send something that I could forward to all of you, which I would like to do. And then I know I received something today, this afternoon, from Juan of another service that he uses. So I personally would like to look at those and decide what I think would be the best for us before making that decision. But as far as decisions for tonight, I am happy to commit to not changing the date. I am happy with Chief Press as an interim. I would like to commit to us doing some type of formal process, whatever it be that we choose, either the suggestion from Juan, the suggestion of what the fire department uses, or what Dr. Simon put together for us today.
Okay. And I guess I'll just weigh in. I'm of a like mind. I agree on the acting. I agree to keep the date because I do think we'll look foolish if we change it. I was curious, I understand there's a lot of good candidates, but I just think you've got to leave it open. It doesn't preclude you from going through those people, and Ed, you'll get your chance in a minute. But I think those are the two things I think we can get right now. I do agree that it should come back if there are other programs that we can look at. I know Dr. Simon had tried to reach me today. I was unable to speak to him on the phone, but I like his idea. I do like the idea that a number of you spoke about looking at the psychological makeup of this person, their ability to handle the stress of this job. I like that a lot. So I would like to see us come back and discuss that. The question becomes, how do we do that? So I guess, I know, Ed, Vice Mayor, you want to make a comment, and then maybe we should act, consensus on the acting and consensus on the date at which we're cutting off, and then discussing how we're going to make our decision on the process or procedure to go forward.
Well, in discussing the acting as far as Chuck Press, it's fine with me. I think probably we all agree to that. We'll find out shortly. As far as both you and Ignacio saying, we'll look foolish, we'll lose our credibility. I don't know who we're trying to impress. We're trying to accomplish something, not impress anybody with anything. We have an adequate number of people, quality people who have applied for the job. I am sure that within that group, and anybody who people knew about this job. I found out from another manager of another city in Dade County that Andrea quit before I knew she quit. So the word spread far and wide very quickly. And those people who want the job or interested in the job have applied for it. Those people in the market. The only people we might get is somebody who now realizes maybe he's going to lose his job with Dade County because of the new mayor or something like that. But I really think that at this point in time, we have plenty of people, we have quality people, we can make a decision. There's no reason to keep dragging things out. That's what we always do. Drag things out, accomplish very little, but do it now. So the idea of impressing people, credibility, believability, that's all nonsense. We can go ahead, change the thing, put the ad out tomorrow saying we've modified the date. The date is next Tuesday. It gives people who are thinking about it to go ahead and do it. The only people you're saying is maybe nobody heard about it all of a sudden. In the last 2 weeks, they're going to hear about it and start applying for the job. The other thing is we're not going to meet until next month. So if we do something like that, once we have that list from Juan, then we independently, until the next meeting, can go ahead and get and talk to these people, call these people, listen to these people, ask people questions, and then make a ranking of what we think. So when we come back to work, we're going to have this list, which we then will either do ourselves or give to somebody else to do. Now, I agree with Luis completely. I hate to go hire outside consultants when I think we can do that. But I'll tell you something, I don't know how to give an IQ test. I don't know how to give an aptitude test. I don't know how to do the simulations. So in that particular case, Luis, that's the only reason I would say to ship it out to somebody else. If we can do it internally, I'd be happy to do it internally. But I don't think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Juan, that we have the resources, the wherewithal, the knowledge, the capability, or the people to do that ourselves. So since we don't have, if we believe we should do that, then I think we have to go outside. I personally, again, from my experience of hiring CEOs in the past, and I've hired many of them, I think that's what we should do to basically make sure, we never make sure, but to have a better idea that maybe we're making the right decision for whoever we hire. So I like to see the consensus on Chuck Press and the consensus on the 15th, advertising tomorrow that we're canceling. No reason to keep dragging things out. It's just a waste of time.
Well, first of all, just so we're clear, I voted for the KCI engineering so that we weren't dragging things out. Just if we're talking about dragging things out.
It, Michael. You're really moving forward.
I just want to be clear.
I'm going to defend you. I'm not going to put you in jail, okay? As criminal that you are, as rotten as you are, as miserable as you are, I'm not going to take you away.
All right, fair enough. I appreciate that. Anyway, Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
Yeah, I think, Ed, the art of counting, I agree with you 100%. I think we did, if we talk about being ridiculous, we changed twice. We set 10 days and then we wasted a week and then we put another. So we already don't look too well. So changing it to me to the 15th is the most efficient way of doing it. But I don't think we have the votes and we need to try to have a group consensus moving forward. But that's the way it is. It would help. What I wanted to make sure, because sometimes we get these late discussions and we miss something. I haven't read what I read briefly on Dr. Simon or whomever, which we get something and a recommendation like an hour before the meeting already is not very welcome by me. But that's my personal opinion, because we've been at this for quite a while and we do look a little not so well that we haven't moved as fast as we can. But one of the reasons I don't have a problem with possibly going out to somebody outside to do these tests, but in that memo, he specifically recommended companies. When I read that, I remember McCormick, thank you for bringing it up, Councilwoman, talking about what she had done with the chief of the fire department about another group that may or may not be as good or better. So what I'm not marrying myself is to any one recommendation of a particular company, which was the two people or two companies that recommended. I don't think there's a consensus on the 15th. So first, Mayor, I guess what I was trying to do earlier is we have to accept, because we left it open to discuss whether we ask the manager to stay longer, but it seems to me that why don't we just decide that December 31st? If that's the case, let's just do it and then go to your second recommendation on Chief Press. My only concern, because I think is very capable of doing it, is I would hate to have somebody who is a director of a key department leave it for a period of time, even if it's just a month. That concerns me about him, Jake. So I would fall more. If they're clear how to do that, and I know that I don't, and obviously neither could or none of them could apply for the permanent job, but I'm not sure unless he's on the line whether that police is the most sensitive thing we have, and including of course the negotiations we're going through. I hate to leave a gap there when we have Benjamin, who's pretty good. That I'd be comfortable with as interim manager. So I don't know. It's a very fast decision. I know obviously he's very good, but who has spoken to him? And
I had asked him. I had asked him and specifically asked, confirmed that if we made him the temporary, he would not be applying for the job. And he said he had no interest in applying for the job. And I thought, okay, great. As a few people have said, both a number of people have been the acting manager before. And I just thought it was the easiest choice. He's been the director of the police
No,
department.
but how about the police department? How that's such a critical department?
Well, look, if you want to get him he's here. If you
feel comfortable with
Chief Press.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How's everybody?
All right.
So to answer your question, sir, I have a great staff, and I have policies and procedures in place that I feel on any short-term basis would allow our police department to not miss a beat. I have 100% faith in my staff, and there's no doubt in my mind, as I have done before when I've had to take on other duties like Public Works Director and Acting Manager and other duties like that, that my team understands our visions, our goals, and they're going to continue forward doing those things. But that is just my personal opinion, and I leave it all up to you.
No, I wanted to hear from you, not hearsay. So I have no problem, and then we should decide, May, if you want a motion, December 31st, that farewell to Madame Aga, and to appoint Press as interim.
Okay. Mike, why don't we see if we have consensus with Chief Press and get it over with?
Okay, do we have consensus?
I made it into a motion so that we can just move on.
Yes.
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 Okay, so
Yes.
that's the consensus.
Yes,
Congratulations.
yes.
Okay, that's done.
Now the 15th.
Okay, do we have consensus on the 15th?
Yes.
Who's for the 15th?
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
It's voting five
yes.
times.
Wait a minute, 2 is more than 5, right?
Yes.
If I can just stop you guys
It's a
one
new
second,
map.
I think.
Hold on.
I think just because the appointment of the interim manager is an important position, I think you should take formal action, and actually do a motion, a second, and not just.
I made a motion.
I know, but there wasn't a vote. There wasn't.
Oh,
a
okay,
vote.
I made
That's
it a
all I'm
motion, yeah.
So it's been seconded. No, Ed seconded it.
A voice vote is fine.
All those in favor of Chief Press as interim manager?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And that's effective December 31st, I believe, was the
Correct.
motion.
I think that's the last day. Correct. I think. Madam,
January 1st is my last day, so.
January 1st. Okay. So you guys will have 1 day of overlap.
All right, move to keep the return date the same.
Second.
Call it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. All right. Now, as far as the sequencing of the process and the procedures, how do we come back at that? Because I think to Councilmember McCormick's points, there are, and Councilmember Laredo's points, Ed, I'm going to mute you. You're just sitting over there. You're making noise. So I like the idea. I mean, I think we're all pretty much in consensus that we do want some sort of evaluation procedure. The question is, who are we going to hire to bring that? So what would you propose? Councilmember Kaplan, you have a proposal?
First of all, the methodology that and the purpose that Allison was speaking to, that alluded to Chief Lang, is something that I believe we need to do. It's background checks. We need to do that. That's different from the sort of psychological evaluations and character evaluations that we're talking about.
Frank, they do that.
Okay, well then what I was going to suggest is there are 4 functionalities that have been presented as either recommended or in some minds necessaries for us to evaluate these candidates. They, apart from the background check vetting, which we need to do, of course, basic due diligence, they all presume that an independent professional assessment will reveal things for our benefit in making decisions that we may or may not be able to discern on our own. So we ought to, it seems to me, get a description from each of these.
Right.
So what exactly they do, how much they're going to charge. Maybe if it's on a unit basis, we assume 5 candidates, but with a unit charge, so that if it's 7 candidates or whatever, we know what the differential will be. And we make a determination as soon as we get this information that either these various services are or are not redundant and overlapping. And if they're really different and we think that they garner information that we, will feel like we need, then we're in a negotiation with vendors, with service providers.
So when can we do that? I guess my question is, how soon do we think we could turn this around? Because, I mean, to Ed's point, I would like to do this as quickly as possible. I think, once the 31st comes and we have the date done, I would like us to be moving forward and say, okay, all of these number of people are going to be submitted into the program.
My surmise is that we can get statements of work, recommended scope and purpose and pricing next week. It's not a long shot.
Vice Mayor?
I agree with Frank completely, which is unusual. Sorry. It does happen occasionally. But,
You need to unmute yourself, Vice Mayor London.
The most important party was
The mayor does this to me every time.
It's like I'm cutting his food, for crying out loud.
Anyway, I agree with Frank completely. And I think that Juan can go out, get these things for us, and then send it to us, all of us, so that when we meet the next time, we can go ahead and make a decision. But all the information, all the legwork should be done before the next meeting. So we have the information, we can make a decision.
My question is, do we want to do that at the meeting on the 12th, or do we want to have a meeting?
Right.
We want to have a meeting.
You're asking, Ed didn't get it. Your question is, should we meet or consult before?
Thank you.
I am prepared to meet anytime next week.
Well, that's my question.
Yeah. Or delegate, yeah.
Juan, can you speak to how long would it take you to get the information that we need? We could meet on the 22nd. Are people going to be around, or are people going away for the holidays?
Yeah, but we have Zoom.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'll be here.
But we need 4 of us in this room.
Oh, we need legally?
Well, yeah, because we're doing the hybrid.
What's the intention to meet? To just narrow down the candidates? Or
no. This is about the services. No, the services for the process and procedures. Like, who are we going to hire to do the analysis, to do the psych workups and all that?
I think you can hold a meeting virtually and give the manager direction. I think it's going to be within her purchasing authority. Fine. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be less than $50,000.
It will be.
Yeah.
It will be.
Look, Ed almost fell out of his chair.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Luis, we're going to get consultants who are surveying the candidates. Is that a problem?
Is it engineering consulting?
I'm trying to make it as... Okay. Juan, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. How long do you think it would take you to get us that information?
Tomorrow.
How many organizations did we name?
I think there were 4.
Oh.
Okay.
2.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of reaching out to them and getting a proposal.
Right.
Yeah, it's Town Plus that the fire department uses, the one that you sent to me today, and then the ones I think there were 2 in Steve Simon's thing that he's.
So Councilmember McCormick, does your math make that 4?
It does.
Wow. I thought Ed was good at math. All right. How long do you think it would take you to get that done, Juan?
I could put in a request
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, and it all depends on how quickly they return it to me. But I would venture to say they should turn it around by the end of the week or beginning of the following week. I would assume. I could keep.
Can we give them a date?
Yes.
Just tell them like we need this by Friday.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't, they're out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable. And then we'll meet again on the 15th, just for that purpose.
Let's be a little careful about you don't meet the date on Friday, you're out.
Right, that's true. We do. Okay, so do you want to say the 22nd then we meet?
It could be next Monday. I mean, I think that this information has already been amassed by these proposed vendors. They've spoken to Steve. I've spoken to 2 of them. The fire department's consultant is, they do it all the time. There's nothing novel about
Eric's
it.
on the call. Eric, how long do you think it would? Could you get the information to Juan in the morning so that he can get on that? Chief Lane?
I have
Oh,
the
okay.
information.
All right, perfect.
And what about the situation one that you talked about, Connie? Is she part of this, or is that completely separate?
Yes.
That's one of the two. That's one of the four.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we do this? Let's play this as we'll tentatively set for next Tuesday. But if we need to audible, we'll audible by the end of the week. We'll
That's
have
fine.
Let's everybody sort of hold next Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock. But if we find on Friday that we can't make it, we'll get something out and we'll rearrange.
Tuesday of next week?
Tuesday of next week, the 15th. Is that okay for everybody?
That's good.
Okay.
And that would be 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Correct.
That's good.
All right.
All right. Anyway, since Juan is on the line, would it help you, or you rather we get to the 5 that we're going to check before? Can we start sending you our I call them, I don't want to call rejects, but the ones that we're not considering? One.
Well, I think we can eliminate the ones that don't meet the qualifications.
Well, okay. I'm still going to want to look. I mean, I understand what are your determinations as to what aren't the qualifications?
Well, I'm not, I spread it out on the spreadsheet, and as I get the candidate submittals, I'm adding it to the spreadsheet, and you will have access to that at any time. So.
He put that out today. It's very good, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I saw I haven't really looked through the spreadsheet, but that's great. I guess if we want to include somebody, if we go through and we find somebody, we say, no, we want them to be considered. I guess that's the question, right? If we see somebody we think is phenomenal, what's that?
Sometimes it's not so black and white.
Right. Well, that's my question. And so I would like, one of the purposes of us doing it is some of us have, it's gray areas on some of these people. They may not have the education requirements that may be listed, but they have experience that makes up for that for us. So I want to offer that caveat. I don't necessarily want Juan eliminating people from our, he might want to put people, I think we are the determining factors. We should be the determining forces here. So
the reverse of that is true as well. We have a deadline at the end of the month. Let's not prejudge definitively. Let's be self-disciplined as we think about these people.
Correct.
So I'm just thinking timeline, Mayor. So
okay,
you get the final list on the 31st or the 1st.
Well, the 31st we'll have the final list of applicants, right? And then we'll have some time where you haven't met with certain people. So I figure those intervening 10, 11 days before our meeting on the 12th, you'll want to have reached out to those people and had some conversation.
Right. So then on the 12th, your goal is just to have, let's say, the last 5.
I would like us all to have a list of 5, ideally on that day.
And the other meeting in January, decision day.
Correct. Yeah, I would like, or we're having, that's where we get into that strange scenario, right? We're in COVID. Normally what we do is we do meet and greets with all the candidates every time. And this will be my 4th managers interviews, and we've always had a meet and greet. That's very difficult with COVID. But I would like to, I want us to think that out too. How are we going to, because it's meeting somebody face to face. I mean, you don't offer a job generally. I don't think I've ever offered somebody a job without meeting.
But I find that deadlines helps me focus. And
I agree.
We can cross those bridges. If we have, in your view, we have 5
on the 12th. By
the 12th, which maybe there's a little bit of pre-checkup, and then we have another 2 weeks for this background check.
Right.
With the view to decide on the 20 whatever. That would be a good.
I think that's a great goal. That'd be a great goal.
I'll make that into a motion. Yeah, with the flexibility that if we, otherwise we're going to drift a little bit unintentionally.
Right. It's good to have dates and parameters for sure.
Can you repeat the motion, Councilmember Laredo, please?
I think that we should have by the 12th
a list of 5.
A list of 5, and between the 12th and the 28th, whenever the next meeting is, kick in the background checks, for lack of a better word, that we're talking about, with a view to decide on the 26th.
Okay, to do that, listen,
Is there a second on that motion?
just a comment and we'll see about this.
2 weeks between the two meetings.
One of the things that presupposes is that we will either, by dint of our own personal initiatives, meet these people once or more than once, or we will not. And we will still be holding ourselves to the determination of winnowing, whatever the number is. It's 27 today, down to 5. That may be a bridge too far if we really want to have a scrupulous process that includes, well, in the past, what we've done is 3 interviews at least, and recognizing that any one interview may be misleading, it may be incomplete, it may be inadequate for all kinds of reasons. The second interview was a good idea in all cases, it seems to me. You learn something about the person, you come back, you deal with what you've learned. The third interview, the last time around, was on the day of the decision. It was the morning of a long day. And that's when there was, more culmination of judgment about what had happened in the preceding time. In the meantime, too, the community had been introduced to all of the finalists. So your motion presupposes a process that, it seems to me, has to include interviews.
I am doing interviews. We need to have the initiative or not be victims of systems. We were relatively small. We need to interview people, as I'm sure a lot of you are already doing.
I don't think your ideas are mutually exclusive. I think what Councilmember Laredo, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think your goal is to actually set a course so we're not, to Councilmember London or Vice Mayor London's point, just pushing it down the road. He wants to get things done and make a decision. I get that. I think it's fair to see. Our goal should be to come back with 5 names on the 12th. If we don't, then we'll figure that out. But I would like to see, ideally, I agree. I think we should be pushing this at a pretty rapid rate, and we should all be trying to reach out. If we cannot, and right, people are continue at that point to be trying to interview people and still have more applicants to review, then we can audible at that point. I don't think we're making any definitive decision that it's a drop dead date of January 26th. We must make this decision by, but I think it's a good goal to be pushing for.
Correct. So theoretically, that means that on an individual basis, as a matter of our own personal initiative and scheduling, we're going to reach out, each and every one of us, privately to 27 people, maybe 40 people, whatever the number is. Unless as a matter of individual discretion, we just flat out eliminate somebody on the basis of objective criteria.
I think that's right. I think, yes, I think you're going to. I don't think you're going to interview. I don't think I'm going to interview. If there are 40 applicants, I probably will not interview all of those people. Because the fact is, when 40 resumes come across my desk, some are going, I'm just going to say, no, that person doesn't meet. Now, maybe they have an incredible cover letter, or there's something about them. They have a recommendation from somebody that makes me say, okay, I'll take this meeting. But generally, no, I'm going to winnow it down from the resumes. I'm going to say, okay, these people fit the criteria. These people do not. And the people who do, I will reach out and set up some sort of meeting, and we'll go from there.
So to make this a little bit simpler and more objective, the criteria, it seemed to me, are discernible from the ad itself.
I think so.
Our presentation included an educational component,
yes,
and a job experience component.
I think that's right. But if there, as I said, if there's a recommendation, or if somebody out in the community sends me somebody with a sterling recommendation, I'm going to consider that person. I don't want that person negated simply because they don't meet certain requirements that we've established.
Well, I'll just say my bigger concern is not the first elimination of 40 applicants, because basically what we're doing is what the firm, if we hired them to do, and they would basically go through resumes on paper and just say, this are not going to make it and these ones are going to make it, and limit it down to maybe 10. I think the more process that what Frank might be alluding to is, once you have the 5 or 8 or whatever we have, how we carefully come down to the 1 is very, very critical for me.
So you're right. So it may be a little bit too aggressive to say the 26th is a date we're going to be done by.
Why don't we just get to the 12th and we decide on the 12th if we feel comfortable going to the 26th? We might have a very clear picture of who it's going to be, and we might not.
Okay.
At that time.
I agree with Brett, and I think like step by step, I take Councilmember Laredo's point that we all need to be disciplined with what we're doing and have our goal in sight to try to do this as quickly as possible while still doing it right. But if we set as our first goal to try to have our short list finalized on the 12th, and then at that same meeting to then look and see what we think is best setting our next deadline, I think that I'm comfortable.
I'll amend my motion. I amend my motion to do the 12th.
Okay.
To have 5 and to make the decision thereafter, hopefully on the 26th, but we'll play it by ear.
That sounds good.
But at least we'll have.
Second.
Okay, so we will not have a consultant assist with that winnowing process. We will do that on our own.
Yes. Absolutely.
In which case, I think we should shoot for a short list of 5, not 3.
Right. I think 5 is the right number.
5, yeah. No, I meant 5. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You said 5.
No, it's just that.
No, we had conversation about it. I just wanted to make sure we were all clear.
Yeah, I made it 5 in my motion because Councilmember Moss also mentioned 5 to 8, and I want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the. I meant 5.
Right. 5 is good.
Yeah.
All right. Are we clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll find out. I don't think we need. Okay. We have consensus. Do we have a consensus of council?
Yes.
Okay. Let's move forward. Next item. Oh, mask mandates. Okay. So despite the allegations of war crimes, here's the deal. The county has an executive order which mandates masks. Okay. That's out there. It's been in existence for quite a while. It was put in place by Mayor Jimenez. Recently, I was on a call on Friday with Mayor Levine Cava. She has introduced 2 things. She's got 2 goals right now. First is she wants to communicate the need to be wearing facial coverings and social distance, wash your hands thoroughly and often. She really wants to get that. We can, we will is the name of the campaign. They've done a great job of rolling that out. On Friday, she had a number of the leaders of the hospitals in South Florida, as well as political leaders throughout Monroe County, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. And what the picture they're painting is disturbing. One of the things that I found most concerning to me was that not that the number of hospital beds is not the issue. The issue is staff. The number of ICU nurses and ICU technicians that are available it's decreasing, and they're overtaxed. They've been on the front lines. They've been at war since March, and they've had no respite, and they're exhausted. And what had been happening when we had our last surge back in the summer was that we were able to bring in what they call traveling nurses, but with the speciality of ICU, they were able to come into South Florida and assist. But now all of those people, and then some of the nurses and technicians who are in South Florida, have gone throughout the country to other places. So our forces for fighting the COVID outbreak, for dealing with the people who are really affected, impacted by this disease, it's been hamstrung. And the hospital administrators were just on the phone call at the press conference, just saying this is a serious situation and we must take drastic steps to do what we can. And so the mask mandate, she has asked that in addition to the communication efforts, which I would like all of us to be a part of, I would like all of us to be putting out messages, putting out the video. You guys know I've been doing these videos since March, and I think it's important that all of us offer just little snippets, just 30 seconds, a minute of, hey, let's wear a facial covering, let's wash our hands, let's do the social distancing, let's slow the spread of this disease, let's flatten the curve. The mask mandate has been in place. The governor did issue an order that limits our ability to collect fines, right? It doesn't limit our ability to issue violations. So I want that to be clear because that has not been taken away. I'm not requesting that we implement anything that isn't already on the books. I'm just asking that we support our police chief in an effort to, and let me be clear, his plan is to hand out masks with, if an officer sees somebody without a mask, they give them a mask, they give them a written warning. If they find that person, if the person A refuses to wear the mask, or they subsequently find this person without a mask, they will issue a fine in line with the county's procedure and the fines. So what I'm asking is for all of us to make a concerted effort as a council to support our chief in enforcing the mask mandate that the county mayor is asking all of the communities across Miami-Dade to enforce. Let me tell you, the League of Cities, Miami-Dade County League of Cities, our board met today. We were unanimous in our support for enforcing the mask mandate. It is scientifically, it's scientifically stated.
Mayor, I move it.
Okay.
I move it.
I appreciate it.
And let me just add to those. As you know, being on the International Board of Baptists, I can only add weight to what you're saying. And the other thing is with the transition going on in the federal government, this is much more dangerous because here's what's happening. And I know all of you know it. It is now 50 states. There used to be pockets, as you remember, in their previous count. So there is no volunteer like we do sometimes with our FPNL going to other states to cover. There is no North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming.
Right.
Have the high, so it's no longer rural or urban. So this is prudent, it's wise, and I respect other people's other opinion, but this is
we need to do it.
Time to be risking people's life. It's
and we're just asking.
I move that your proposal to support the chief in this enforcement.
Okay, and I want to reiterate that our goal isn't to get fines, right? I just want people to comply, and unfortunately, we've reached a point where people just. And I don't think it's malicious. I think a lot of people are just forgetting, but we need to give them something to remind them. It's kind of like seatbelts, right? You're not doing it to penalize them. You're doing it so that they protect themselves. Well, we're asking them in this case, protect other people. We've got a lot of vulnerable seniors in this community who are really terrified to go outside. I'm getting calls from people who are really afraid because they're seeing so many people out on the streets who are not wearing facial coverings. So, again, we're not changing any rules. We are just endorsing the police enforcing the county's mask mandate. And I would ask for all of your support at this time.
I move it.
Okay, I would second. Does anybody oppose it? Okay, Chief, Madam Manager, you have our support and we will be working with you. I would ask, Jessica is on the call. She's our communications person. I would ask all of you to get involved. It matters. People see it. You don't think they do, but they really do see these videos that I've been doing. They see them and they pay attention. And first of all, they appreciate that we're engaged and that we're looking out for them. But it does make a difference. I'm telling you, it will make a difference in changing people's behavior. And that's all we're asking for. And, the vaccine's coming and hopefully by April or May, this will be something we'll be talking about. But for right now, we really have to address the issue. So I thank you all for this and we'll move forward.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is CARES Act funding.
Okay. And this is something that I just really found out about today. I didn't have a lot of chance to speak to anybody. I think the manager and I maybe, do we do emails real quick?
A little bit.
Okay. But... So our commissioner, Raquel Regalado and Commissioner Ken Hardiman together pushed to there was $75 million of CARES Act money that was put aside for the municipalities in Miami-Dade County. And unfortunately, there was a move among the county commission to not release as much as we had hoped originally when we'd been in discussions. Well, Commissioner Hardiman and Commissioner Regalado working together have gotten the county to agree to release another $58 million to the municipalities. It's going to take some changes in the MOU that we have. The manager already has the authority to enter into to amend the MOU. But my point to you is, and to the community, and Commissioner Regalado and I spoke this afternoon. She's going to get back to me with more information about this that I'll pass along to the manager. But I really want to see what we can do for our businesses, because this money, I mean, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Manager, but I think our expenses have really been covered, right? But they were all sort of FEMA related, if you will. This is non-FEMA. So these people they can get rent relief. There's ways for us to assist these businesses potentially. So as I get the information, I just want your support as a council so that we can get the manager to work again with the chamber and work with the businesses to get them support. If you've been walking around, I was around to a lot of the local businesses over the past week and a half. They're hurting. There's a lot of people who are just at the end of their rope right now. And so I'd like to see us do what we can to assist them in getting this CARES Act money as it becomes available. All of this money has to be spent by December 31st. It's no longer the 15th. So that's a good thing. It's going to have to be a fast process, which is why I'm asking everybody to support the manager moving this forward. But that's all the information I have right now. As soon as I get it.
We support you and the manager, delegate to you, so you don't have to get back to us.
All right.
We have to trust each other to get this done, because just like after you get this resolved, or hopefully, I hope that you also stay focused on, like I told the consultants in Tallahassee, because when I was sitting here, the House passed the defense bill tonight.
Right.
And I'm sure they're going to move on the other one. We got to really stay focused on that to December 31st.
I agree with you 100%.
So I make a motion to delegate to you the authority, working with the manager to get as much. But by the way, parenthetically, great to see that councilman helping, commissioner helping us, since he to us with Ultra. So maybe it's redemption.
That's right.
I make it into a motion.
All right, appreciate it.
There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, advisory boards.
Well, Mayor, I wanted to ask you, I've been here about 2 years, and I don't think I have many appointments because I respect it. And as you recall specifically, the 2040 Strategic Board, as you know, I recommended somebody to you, and you were kind enough to appoint him. And I had to withdraw his name because, we're a collegial group. And at that time, one of our colleagues, needed a spot. But I now know that there is a vacancy in that committee.
Okay.
I would like to ask you to appoint Bill Kraus to that committee, William Kraus, which you had already done, remember, a year or two ago.
Okay. Who left?
I don't know, but I have the memo that the advisory boards, there's 11 members, one is vacant. On the Strategic Vision Board, it's the only one that is not 7.
Okay.
The list we got from the clerk.
All right. I think if that's right, so there's a missing person in the 2040?
Yes.
That's the information we were given.
All right. That's fine.
Ago.
And Mayor, on the with your permission and my colleagues, if you don't mind, I want to switch to and I see that Kaplan is back, so I know that one of his other areas of interest is the art in public places. I would like to go as a liaison with Parks and Open Space Board, if that's okay, and switch me from art in public places.
I don't. Does anybody have any objection to that? Does anybody have their heart set on parks and open spaces?
I appreciate the thought. I'd like to go back to art in public places.
Okay, great. That makes it easy.
And Mayor, just for next time or the one after, because we have but we did a wonderful job back in March of the 19th of analyzing, I recall, all of the boards and cleaning up the terms and everything else. We need to revisit that. We have a new council in essence. By resolution, membership is 2 years.
Right. We should take a look.
We need to kind of look at it with your help and see if we can. There's so much talent out there and so many young people that I like to perhaps cautiously, but just to maybe put her on the agenda at your convenience, either on the 12th, maybe that.
Why don't we do that on the 26th? I think the 12th is going to be a big manager meeting. I have a feeling.
Okay.
All right. Good.
Thank you.
That sounds good. And the last item.
Brett.
Farmers market.
Yeah, so I noticed that the you know, they're selling the Christmas trees over at the church where they usually have the farmer's market. I know this, we spoke about this a few years back when we were talking about 5:30. And I said, you know, maybe this we could temporarily move it over there, help them out a little bit. I think that Todd actually went over and spoke to them, and the church was very open to it. And I said, you know, 1 or 2 weeks over here at 5:30, have it on a Saturday, and see how it goes.
I don't see a problem. Chad, is there any issue with that?
Sorry, I was making sure I wasn't muted. No, I don't think there's any problem. I know the manager and I spoke. We just need to check on the environmental restrictions and make sure that we don't put anything permanent in the ground, or if we do put tents or anything like that, that we take precautions.
Great.
But just to be clear, the church and whoever's involved in the farmers market thinks that this won't be a deprivation of foot traffic from the green, and that they're okay with this?
What do you mean by the green?
Well, the green is adjacent to across the street from the church, and what I've noticed is that there's just a lot of traffic around, a lot of people walking around, and people drawn into the farmers market because they're there. You know,
but I think for 2 weeks, you know, while they're selling the trees.
Yeah, they can't have it because of the Christmas trees right now. So that sales, they really can't. They don't have any room to do anything right now. So I was thinking just for the 2 weeks we have it here, and it can go back. Or if it's successful, you know, we can test it out and see how.
I guess if we didn't do something to facilitate a different location, they'd be out of business.
They'd be out of business for 2 weeks.
They're out anyway for 2 weeks. Yeah.
So,
all right,
let's do it.
Sounds
I agree.
good.
Consensus of council. Everybody
Consensus. Good.
Yes.
All right. Moving along. What'd I do to my, okay.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Let's go. Thank you all. Take care.
Good night.